Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Bloody Good Horror Year-Ender Show for 2015, live streaming to the masses for the first time ever. It's been a momentous year here at Bloody Good Horror. I'm the editor-in-chief over at that site that I just said 4 times. Joining me tonight, first up, he makes that website. He also, in 2015, became the managing editor, and if I do say so myself, has done a delightful job. His name is Mark.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks.
The Year-Ender, Mark. It's the show of compliments.
Oh, yeah.
So soak it in.
I'm willing to receive those compliments.
Yes. Next up on the show, he's got a beard. He vapes. He also hosts the Instamatic. And coming to you live tonight from Indiana, his name is Casey.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Next up, joining us.
Vaping is that dope, or is that
No.
just cigarettes and stuff too?
I love when
Just
we explain
nicotine.
things to Joe on the show.
Crack
It's
cocaine.
a cigarette cessation device.
We're going to teach Joe about trap later in the show, but we can do that in a little bit here. First up, joining us tonight from New York City, he went to Duke, which is pretty much all you need to know about him. That means he's better than you.
Gonna be compliments here.
Well, you went to Duke. I don't know. That's
All
all
right,
on how
good
you
point.
take it, Schnars.
Yeah,
Really, that's
okay.
like up to you to decide how to interpret that. His name is John Schnars.
Hey.
I should mention the business manager of BloodyGoodHorror.com and the magical put-her-together person of the Year-Ender show. Spreadsheets, pie charts, flow things.
I should have given you a heads up. I ended up not making any charts.
That's fine.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know.
That's
I
fine.
What
know.
are you even here for?
It is what it is, guys.
And last up tonight here in the show, we know what he's here for, and that is drunken non sequiturs. He also has a delicious holiday background behind him, if you're watching the stream. His name is Joe.
I'm very excited.
The world's most well-decorated bathroom.
Damn straight.
I feel like Joe's just still self-conscious from that time I pointed out that he just had like a sanitarium wall behind him in the stream.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's because we still rent, and for whatever reason, I don't know, we never feel like we're gonna stay at a place more than a year, so we never like to get too attached.
I know the feeling, Joe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're here tonight to talk about 2015. We are all 1 year closer to death, and this is the show where we talk about it. We are, in a little bit here, going to have Schnars run us down the list of the top 10 movies as voted on by the writers at bloodygoodhorror.com and tallied by Schnars, because math is hard. But quick, I guess, like little housekeeping stuff. First up, does anybody know, I didn't warn anybody, as per usual, releases coming up in January? Have we thought a lot about movies? We may not have. Maybe that's the answer.
We have the woods coming up.
The forest, actually.
Yeah, sorry.
Suicide Forest.
Spooky
In
Japanese.
Indiana, it's the
forest.
woods.
Yeah. The forest. There's a bunch of stuff in January. I don't know. It's definitely gonna be. There's something called The Boy. Oh, isn't that
Oh,
one?
The Boy.
fucking doll.
Oh,
That's
that
with
was-
the doll
Yeah.
and the lady from The Walking Dead there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a winner. And
I'm kind of like, I'm not saying it's gonna be
No.
good. I'm just saying like I'm interested.
no, come on, like watchable.
Sure.
Is a stretch for
Listen,
that.
it's
Pretty
January, man.
It's
like-
fair. We also have Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. That's February 2nd.
I'm pretty into that.
Yeah. Oh, I think Evan got to see a preview and had, somewhat complimentary things to tweet.
Had a thing to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should mention too, this, as we mentioned earlier, as we record this live, we're going out to the internet. This is usually something certain levels of patrons get, being able to stream the show live. We decided Year-Ender would give it to everyone. If you like what you see and it's something you'd like to watch every week, which why wouldn't you? You can visit patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. You can find out all about sort of the different levels of supporting BGH, what you get in return, and it's really a win-win for everybody, Schnars. don't you think?
I would say so.
Yeah. We should also mention too, you can still get, if you are not interested in that, but you have like a couple of random back episodes you want to pick up, you can still go to podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com and buy individual classics for 99 cents. It's another thing that kind of helps support BGH, but it's kind of more like a one-off thing as opposed to doing the pledge. So
It helps Joe decorate the wall behind him.
Damn straight.
And we should mention too, if you listened to us in 2015, liked it, leave us an iTunes review. That's another thing that's hugely helpful to getting us out to a larger.
Helpful if you call us misogynistic bro douches. It's usually
Yeah, even if they're
Yeah.
bad, because when they're bad, we at least have like funny email conversations about them. So
I think that's the first time in 2015 we've asked for those.
I'll be honest,
Possible.
if Casey didn't check, I literally would never know what anyone said about us on iTunes because
Yeah.
who does that?
I have
Who
a
looks-
fragile ego, so.
Yeah.
But we do read them. We actually there's an email every time we get a new one.
Casey,
So,
my ego is unshakable. So, 2015. You know what else happened in 2015, Schnars? A little thing.
a lot of things. Go ahead, you
a
tell
little
me.
thing called the Star Wars.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Snuck it right in under
We're
the
not
wire
going to
there.
spoil
Not
it here.
Okay.
I'm not going to have that on my conscience, John. Like
I'm
you
the
know.
only one who didn't see it, right?
Yeah.
Of the group.
Sure.
Yeah.
But we're going out to the internet here. Like, we don't want to spoil it for anyone else.
I was
either.
gonna wait like a week, and then by the end of like the first night,
from X Models.
by the end of the first night that it opened, I was like, "There's no way I'm going all weekend without seeing this." So I forced Mark to get up at the butt crack of dawn and go see a 9 a.m. By the way, like 9 a.m. showings, I've done that before, but 9 a.m. and 3D is a little much on the brain.
You did leave out the part where initially I suggested we go see the 10 p.m. and then that somehow
And I laughed at him.
transformed
Come
into
on.
9 a.m.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah. Talking
Goes
to an
to
old
bed at
man
like
here.
9.
And just as I knew, at 10 p.m. on the night you were talking about seeing it, I felt like garbage and would not have enjoyed it. So,
Yeah.
who feels good at 10 o'clock at night? You only feel good at 10 o'clock at night if you're drunk. And,
Yeah.
and it was Sunday.
100%.
The only thing open after midnight is legs and hospitals.
I
No
can't.
comment.
I
And
can't
you're
really
staying
argue.
out of both of them, Mark.
That's like, I can't even. I'm not even going to dignify that with a response.
Yeah. Just move on. Just
But
move
anyway,
forward.
I thought it was great. I don't know. I was just saying to Schnars actually like pre-show. I'm not a Star Wars. I'm not normally like a walk around Star Wars guy. Like I feel like Joe is a Star Wars dude, and I don't mean that in any kind of like negative way, but Joe's
do
a
you
guy.
mean? You
Joe's a guy
people.
who thinks about Star Wars. You know what I mean? I don't ever think about Star Wars until something happens. Like when the prequels came out, the same thing happened. And I all of a sudden realized that I had some like deep-seated childhood Star Wars shit going on. And then it just came back like real hard. And that's what's happening to me again right now. And it's a little unsettling, John. I'm not going to lie.
I think it's cute.
I
think
let
it's very
things
cute.
take control of me. And then who knows what happens after that. But Joe,
I will say, I will spoil. There's a giant monster butt,
sure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
which is the only requirement I have
Like
for
an
love of a
anus
movie,
mouth thing.
is a big monster butt.
The one thing I will say is totally not spoilery that was kind of funny that Mark and I were talking about is like one of my favorite things about it is that it really nails all the dumb shit in the Star Wars universe, like random dumb animal aliens, and it's always like in hilarious montages.
Wearing people clothes.
Every time there's a pilot scene, right? There's like the quick montage where somebody gives an order and you see like two human dudes go like, "Yes, sir, I'm on it." And then literally they cut to like a fish cat and he's like, "Roger that." And then they just like cut away from it. That's Star Wars to me. Like he
It's
nailed
a
it.
different universe, right?
I did hear that it was pretty funny. Like in general, that there was a lot of good humor.
In a good
It's-
way,
yeah,
yeah. But and like
it's lighthearted.
it's funny because I'm going back and watching the originals. Like they're very cheeky. The
I
originals.
mean, George Lucas is
Yeah.
basically like a gigantic child.
Right. I don't want to hear his name, John. Let's not sully the
All
Star
right,
Wars
yeah.
conversation with
All right.
that
Did
guy's
you
name.
see the? This isn't
the
completely
creator.
spoiler worthy because they made it all over the place. But did you catch the X-wing pilot that was in dedication to the Beastie Boys?
No.
No.
Well,
Yeah,
dude,
'cause there's
no,
one
I
of them
obviously
there.
didn't.
His name was Elo Asti, as for Hello Nasty.
Wow. Wow.
He was one of the catfish dudes that had the long face. So
Catfish people.
Roger that.
Yeah, they
Wow.
prefer catfish people.
Shit was funny. Anyway, Star Wars is pretty sweet. I was into it. Go see it. Why not
I mean,
feed?
Yeah.
I very much want to.
Why not
Hey.
feed the machine, John?
Made a $500 million worldwide on its opening weekend.
It made 40 million on Monday.
I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of blows my mind is like, why did it take anybody this long? And Mark and I were talking about it. I mean, obviously, like, you had to pry it from Lucas's cold, dead hands first, but like,
I mean,
I wonder if Disney's been working on this deal for years. If they were for
think
years
there's-
chipping away at him, like, come on, dude, just hand it over.
But I also think there's an argument to be made that it really it took Disney and J.J. Abrams and like all the like kind of ducks lining up to make it what it is. I haven't even seen it.
Oh
so
yeah,
I should-
no, I don't even mean that, but I just mean like somebody had to come up with a plan of like, look, we can print money if we get this, but we have
Yeah.
to get it from Lucas.
What's that? I mean, have you guys seen the stuff they're planning for the parks?
No, I know.
Star
No,
Wars,
I don't listen
the
to
expansion?
Disney. I don't listen to Disney podcasts, Joe. Sorry.
Oh,
Boom.
shot across the bow.
Son of a bitch. It's gonna be amazing. Like they haven't even like fully like laid out like the details, but they're pretty much building like an entire Star Wars land in both Disneyland and yeah.
Yeah, I might
it's-
go. Okay, I would be into that. I get
Settle
it.
down, all you.
It's gonna be so awesome.
I get it.
We're already getting a first spin-off next year.
Also, something you were never able to do with previous Star Wars films is that the soundtrack is on Spotify, which means
Yes.
you can go listen to it.
I'm not gonna lie. Opening night, I listened to the soundtrack while driving to the movie theater and almost cried like a baby when the Star Wars title came up. Like I'm not even ashamed to admit, like a little tear did like.
There
swell
was
the-
third act stuff where I was just like, God damn it.
Well, that's why,
Fucking
and
little
I'm
tiny
not gonna
robot.
get into like spoilers, but like it's the perfect amount of like nods to the old movies
Yeah.
without being like blatantly over the top.
Also,
with
just
the-
enough ginger old people that move slowly.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a good like reboot too. Like you can see
it's
it's a really
awesome.
good place to kick
great.
off a new thing. So it was actually funny because I was explaining to Mark their plan with like, you know, they're doing this Rogue One movie next year, whatever the hell it's called, and the kind of other side movies. And Mark was just like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I was like, I want it inside of me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but like, did you ever watch Clone Wars or any of that stuff?
Funny you should say that,
Yes.
John, because I
Good
just
shout.
added it to my Netflix queue.
Nice.
and
I
I
never
and I looked
watched
and it's like
it, but I probably
139 episodes, and I was like,
It's a lot. You know what is really good is actually Star Wars Rebels. That's on
Yes.
Disney now.
That's
It's
what
a
I'm in search
really
of
good
now.
show.
can I get
Yeah.
that on Netflix?
I think it's on demand, but no, I don't think it's on Netflix yet.
Who has,
That's what I,
I-
gotta
I
find too,
support-
because I hear it ties into Clone Wars too.
who has cable, Joe?
I support all the games. I played like Knights of the Old Republic and that shit, and I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah.
So
All right. As much as I'm enjoying this nerdery, we do have to move on. So
Star Wars #1 movie of the year.
Yeah, I was
Episode's over. That's
yeah,
all.
done.
I was gonna go back and edit my list and sneak it in so John didn't know.
Yeah. Well, too late.
Honorable Star Wars mention: Star Wars. Joe,
Yes, sir.
something you do here at Bloody Good Horror is you give us a beer, you match a beer with that week's usually movie pick, but you know what? You don't need to be watching a movie to drink. I think that's the beauty of drinking. You can
Damn
really be doing
straight.
anything, including watching Star Wars, which is topical. Well, so what are we drinking tonight while we talk about the movies of 2015?
Well, this year, I like to every like sort of year-end show. I like to pick a like sort of my favorite beer from that year. And this year, I discovered a delicious brew that I had for the first time, and it really kind of blew me away. And it is from the good folks at Ballast Point Brewing Company out in San Diego, California. And this is their habanero sculpin.
It's a spicy meatball.
Damn straight. Have any of you guys ever had this?
I had it.
I love this beer. And you've seen chili pepper beers or like habanero beers have been around for a while, and they're usually pretty much a gimmick. Like, you know, you try one and you're like, all right, yeah, that burned my mouth. Whatever. I'm never having that again. But this one, it's an IPA. And if you've ever had their Sculpin, it's a really good IPA that Ballast Point puts out. And I mean, I don't know how they figured this out, but like the balance of like the habanero heat with the sort of hot bite in this one is amazing. You know, it definitely has a burn to it from that heat, but it's not like overpowering. And then those hops kind of come through and really balance everything out. It's
Tastes
awesome.
Like burning.
It does, but like in a really good
Tastes
way.
like burning.
If
But
you
good
like,
burn.
you know, like peppers or anything like that, like you will love this beer. Comes in at about 7% alcohol, so it's a little bit up there.
Hot
which is,
tamale.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll tell everyone it does not burn coming out. So I mean that's a selling point.
That's good.
Oh, you've got the
Listen-
in review and the out
Listen,
review.
Joe. Let's not promise things you can't. I mean, you don't know what other people's GI tracts are like.
Well,
you know?
I don't know what else you're eating with this. So,
Like some people can eat jalapenos, but if I do, bad news.
fire
say it.
fire in the
Yeah,
hole.
so we got to put this to the Eric Newell test.
I don't want any listeners out there getting excited and dropping an O-ring. Is all I'm saying.
Oh god.
Drop it.
But ballastpoint.com is their website. They also put out a version of this with grapefruit, which is good, but I definitely like the habanero better. And then they're
Healthy.
I will vote 100% the opposite direction.
Really?
I love the grapefruit, and I thought the habanero was too hot.
Does the presence
Couldn't
of
make it.
grapefruit mean you could have it for breakfast?
oh, absolutely.
I think is the important
It's
thing.
like a coffee
Of
stout.
course.
You could like gut a grapefruit and then dump it in and then drink it out of the grapefruit husk.
Yeah. Do you fruit that beer? Right. Do you put a grapefruit on it? Just the whole grapefruit just stuck to the top of the glass. I'm into it.
We're geniuses. We are
we're
really
not-
smart people.
All right. Thank you for
Yeah,
that, Joe.
everything Ballast Point puts out is great. So definitely give this one a go.
Very good. Well, thank you for
All right.
that, Joe. Delightful, as always.
Thank you.
All right, guys. It's time. Let's take a quick break and then talk about the movies of 2015.
Jesus wept.
This is Jake Busey. You're listening to the Bloody Good Horror Podcast.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Schnarr's character.
Eric, or I think grumpy character, is that I can't
Words. No,
remember.
I'm Grumpy Beard character. That's
yeah, okay. Grumpy
You
beard
are-
character,
You are
yes.
Schnarr's character, also known as Schneers, which is one I really like.
Shanners.
Shanners. I like Shanners. I like Schneers because it sounds like a John Schnars branded like teeth veneers.
Also, can someone do a Scanners and Schnars mashup that says Shanners on it?
Skinneers, yeah. All right, John, you went to Duke.
We've verified that.
They taught you
previously.
words. What was your degree again? I like to remind people every once in a while.
That is literature.
And what do you do with one of those degrees, John?
Well, it turns out you work in advertising technology.
Professional book reader?
Yeah.
What the hell? I was a communications major, and that's totally made up. So
But
I get
you're
it.
communicating. Look at you.
Yeah.
Communicating.
Did you
You're like a
have a
Yeah, and you know what? I'm
class-
using barely any skills I learned in college right now. It's pretty much all self-taught. So
Did you have a class on the Dewey Decimal System, John? Or was that like a thing?
I remember learning about the Dewey Decimal System in probably elementary and middle school.
Oh
like,
yeah, we
there's
definitely
no
did
way
too.
kids learn that today, right?
I don't even know what that is. I just know it's a thing.
Once Mrs. Savage died, the Dewey Decimal System.
Wow. All right. I can't. I would go into it, but like, who gives a shit other than Mark and I? Because who would know that? So,
Mark's
John,
all choked up. Over there.
John, take that fancy book learning degree and please bring us the word of the day. John, did you have like 100-year-old librarian in your elementary school?
She was 300 years old.
Yeah,
It was in elementary school. Of
we
course
broke her
we
window
should
with a
prevent-
basketball one day. Not on
Oh,
purpose.
Jesus
It
Christ.
was, we were playing flies up. It was an accident.
If the woman from the beginning of Ghostbusters who goes downstairs and sees the ghost had a grandmother, that would be Mrs. Savage.
You know, I mean, it's kind of just sad because she's definitely dead.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Imagine
definitely.
if she's not. Mark, you're like 20 feet from the school. Go.
Go see if she. Well, she probably
find
lived
her.
there.
She's just
so I
sitting
would
on her
guess
porch
that-
yelling at kids who drive by about like putting the card catalog back in order.
Oh my god.
Hey Schnars, what's the word of the day? Just end this.
I'm not even going to be able to get it out at this point. Today's word is tally. Tally. It is, has many definitions. I'm going to read a couple. A current score or amount, a record of a score, a particular number taken as a group or unit to facilitate counting, yada yada. An account kept, and then it can also be a verb to calculate the total of, which is germane to our conversation. I think we all know the word tally. You've heard it. You probably used it. I don't know. It comes from the Latin telea, which means twig. And it's because originally they would count things by marking off a twig, marking little lines on a twig. And eventually they just started it was a tally stick that eventually just became the word tally.
Even though I'm sure you've used that before, I'm into it. I like it.
Not bad.
Is that the root of tallywhacker?
Yeah, probably.
Do you know how we tally a banana?
Also related, twig and berries. All right, John. John, we've wasted enough time tonight.
We've wasted some time, yes.
Give us the quick rundown. We've gone through it a bunch here recently, but if anybody happens to be coming on this cold, how do you put this together? And then just jump into it, man. Let's go. I don't know. What do you want to do? You want to do like worst first, or do you want to do like 10-1, or how do you want to?
Yeah. So
this is your show, bro. You do.
No, I know.
You.
Eric, step back.
Yeah.
Step back.
We're just gonna mute for the next hour.
So yeah, the quick rundown is that everyone sort of involved with Bloody Good Horror this year got a ballot. The ballot had, I think it was about 80 films. No, it was about 70 films, which were sort of. The rule is that it had to be released this year for consumption. So a lot of the movies might get like a festival run in 2014 or even 2013, but they don't get a theatrical release or like a VOD release until 2015, and we use that as the date.
Yeah, specifically because it drives me crazy when a horror site sends some dude to see something at a film festival and then they're telling you it's the greatest movie of the year. And you're like, well, how does that help me? Like, I can't see that for at least another year. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. And a lot of the
We're
movies...
the horror side of the people is what I'm trying to say, John.
A lot of the movies that are in our list definitely made the festival circuit in 2014 or had showings. People saw them last year, but the masses saw them this year. That's what we went with. So, yeah, we had 16 ballots. Everybody votes for their top 10, and then they vote for their bottom 3. And we do, it's not like a super complicated system. Essentially, I just stack rank them and they get points allocated based on, first gets 10 points and the last film gets 1 point. And then you add all that up and we get some data and some numbers out of it. And we see what the sort of collective BGH hive mind has to say.
Now, do you get deducted points for being on a worst of list?
You do not, Joe. No. And
I like that.
We only had one movie that got it's a good point. Sorry. We had 3 movies, I should say, that got 4. Sorry. This is not something I looked up beforehand. Sorry. We had
Obviously.
We had movies.
So we had I'll tell you the movies that got votes for best or made somebody's best top 10 and somebody's worst bottom 3. Unfriended was on different lists. Green Inferno was on different lists. The Nightmare and Hellions were on.
It's funny because those are 4 movies that I look back on and think like people were like divided. So I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, those were those just to kind of kick us off. But I can give you some other numbers because I actually went back. This is the 4th year we've done this, where we've done it in this kind of format. So this is the most voters we ever had. And I think I mentioned this on a past show. We had 33 movies that were named on somebody's top 10 list. So it's actually the lowest sort of number of unique movies named per voter, right? So to give you an idea, in 2014, last year, we only had 9 ballots and we had 34 movies named. So it was like just a much more diverse list as compared to this year. We had 6 number ones this year. 6 different movies were somebody's number one.
That seems low. Like
it is the lowest it's the lowest we ever had, but it's basically in the 4 years we've had 2 years with 6, we had 1 year with 7, and then actually in 2013 we had 11 different movies on 14 ballots. So That was a crazy year.
All right,
Oh.
go.
Go. All right, so we're going to start with the worst. We're going to start at the bottom, and we'll work our way to the top. So we actually had a tie for the third worst movie, Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, and Insidious Chapter 3. Both of them were named on 4 different ballots. We had a lot fewer ballots for worst. I don't know why people like forgot they were supposed to vote.
That's the most fun part.
I think we have to watch everything, and then we tell people they shouldn't see movies. So I feel like some of the people didn't end up seeing these shitty movies because we have to.
I think that Paranormal Activity, I think for me that benefited from really, really low expectations because I didn't put it on my worst, but I did put Insidious 3 because what was that even? I got to say, though, it did give us... I appreciate Insidious 3 if only for giving us the... what's her face?
Lin Shaye.
The Lin Shaye is John Cena meme of 2015.
Yeah.
Just WWE Chuck and Ghost. I mean... That was a pretty good moment for me of 2015, if I'm going to be honest.
Ghost finishing moves was definitely a highlight of the year, I would say.
Ghost finishing.
Yeah.
So. Little Ghost sweet chin music, Schnars.
Yeah.
P85 was my number 2 on my worst list because they spoiled a good thing. The whole franchise was fairly solid throughout, and that kind of ruined it for me.
So Casey and Mark, you both had this in your bottom 3. That was you both had that one. And then it was myself and Eric had Insidious Chapter 3. So,
like, you guys remember that movie, right? I won't begrudge you Paranormal Activity because what the hell? I don't have the energy to argue about that movie being okay or not. But Insidious 3, man, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. That was
we got some Lin Shaye in the video now, Schnars, just to let you know.
That was
Eric's entirely possible that I just blocked it out. That's probably what happened.
Well, a movie that Eric apparently blocked out because the rest of you named it, but Eric did not, is Lazarus Effect at the second movie of the year.
I had movies that made me angrier this year. I did. John, I read your entire ballot.
Yeah.
Like, I went over this thing, man. I was into it this year.
When did that? I feel like that was like one of the first movies we saw in the theater.
Yeah, that seems like a.
And I remember being really, I think probably annoyed by that.
Because it's already streaming on Netflix.
To me, Lazarus Effect was just kind of like, it was pablum. It wasn't necessarily offensively bad.
Yeah. So I didn't see it. I wasn't on that show, but it had like a ridiculous cast. That's what's the weird part.
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, that was what's weird.
I wasn't on that show either, but I watched it because of the Duplass.
That's probably one of the only movies that has a lead. One of the movies that has a lead in one of the best and a lead in one of the worst. Because the Duplass character.
That Duplass was all over the place this year.
Did you have that fact, John? Did you have that one?
I was going to mention that potentially.
That was like some John Madden kind of shit Mark just busted out. That was pretty good.
Thank you. I had a little trouble with the phrasing of it. John looked really confused.
You see, the score just changed because he scored a touchdown.
Oh.
Right. I wish that's our next video technology, is me being able to circle shit in the video and draw
draw dongs and stuff.
You could see the terror in John's eyes as Mark started explaining facts that John probably
I
should
probably could draw stuff with this software we're using. I don't see why not. All right, John, keep going.
We're gonna go to the worst film as voted on by the people of Bloody Good Horror. So this and Lazarus Effect were both named on 7 ballots. It is The Gallows.
Yeah, I think I had The Gallows on mine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Myself and Casey had it as our worst of the year. Eric had it on his top 3. Sophie, who was on our famous 3-person show, also had it as her worst.
I didn't see that one either.
I was stretching during, like, I wanted to find things to like in that movie because it was so unlikable. Like, I found it an interesting exercise, but when I really kind of went over it, I just kind of thought, I can't.
It was terrible.
Is that the one that took place in the school?
Yeah, with Kathy Lee Gifford's daughter.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Coda?
I don't think that's how that works.
It's just like a non sequitur right there.
That's right.
Oh, Lord.
So where, like Eric said, though, that there was other movies that made him more angry than Lazarus Effect, Gallows made me angry. Lazarus Effect just gave me a good
yeah, I got you. Yeah, I was just kind of bored during Lazarus Effect, but definitely I think that's a pretty solid worst of the year pick right there.
It was not good.
I mean, the other thing too is that I don't know what it was, if it was the year or the movies we watched. I had a much harder time with the worst list than I did with the best list. Usually I'd like can fill up a worst list pretty easily, and I feel like
Yeah.
this year it was all just sequels and a couple of random.
Yeah, there's nothing on mine that I like really hated, like had trouble getting through. It was just kind of like those are the ones I disliked.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see Lazarus Effect, but Paranormal Activity to me is just kind of like, meh. I get why someone would put it on their worst list, but like, yeah, it is what it is.
One that I've seen in a couple lists but didn't make the bottom 3 was the Poltergeist remake, which I didn't have, but
I at one point had that as my number 10 best.
You know what's funny? So I had it on my worst list, and I don't know what it was. I just thought about it. I'm like, I don't remember anything from this movie. Like, you remade one of the best horror movies of all time, and I couldn't remember a single thing other than the stuff from the trailers.
You don't remember the drone?
No. I don't remember anything. So in my
further.
Well, I can understand why you would get confused though, and why it would be hazy to you, because it does seem, especially now that we watched Paranormal Activity 5 later in the year, they seem to cross over a lot with that whole ghost dimension thing.
It was so bland and uninspired.
The ghost tunnel.
And you know what? I don't know. Like, as a just pure bad filmmaking, I didn't think it was a bad film, but I was just like, kind of done. I don't care if people want to remake films, but just do it. Make it memorable. Make the Evil Dead remake. That was weird as hell.
I would make the argument that if it wasn't called Poltergeist, it wouldn't have been in anyone's bottom 5. It probably would have landed somewhere between the two lists.
It was passable.
I might make the opposite argument that it would be on more worst lists if it wasn't Poltergeist.
That one Poltergeist didn't make my worst list for the simple fact is it wasn't as offensive as I thought it could have been.
Yeah, I just whatever it was when I was looking at that list, I'm like, you know what? F that movie.
Sam Rockwell's never bad.
Joe,
I didn't even remember he was in the movie though. So you just said that.
Joe, do you want to say anything about The Nightmare, which you and I both had? So the only 2 movies that we didn't talk about is in worst were Nightmare and Sinister 2, which Mark had on his list.
Nightmare, I think I may take it back. Like I was generally annoyed with that movie.
Sinister. Oh man, I totally forgot about that movie too.
Also, now that we're talking about it, it's entirely possible that I mixed up Sinister 2 and Insidious 3.
I was about to ask.
I mean, I already know my theme. My overdone theme of the year is like Sinister 2, Insidious 3, all these Paranormal Activity all this ghost dimension further BS.
Further into the further?
It's too far, man. You gotta stop.
Wait, so I didn't see Sinister 2. Does it also have a further now?
Well, whatever. It's all the same crap. It's like ghosts.
They all kind of blend together, though.
But it did have a lot of. That was the one with like the ghost children that were treated as very real, like pretty earnestly. Like, there's just ghost kids in this house that lead you around and make you watch movies.
It wasn't that terrible though. Like I don't.
They're ghost dogs.
But just
it was better than Insidious 3.
It was a scary.
It wasn't that terrible, but I guess when we start talking about all of them at once, it occurs to me how disturbingly similar all these movies are.
Yeah.
Like even more so than normal.
I mean, I still don't think I meant to put Sinister 2 on my list.
Well, Mark, that would
maybe you thought it was Insidious 3.
No, that's what I said. I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah.
Insidious 3 was bad. Sinister 2 was not good either, but I think that's another one of those like
it was fine.
I really enjoyed Sinister, and I really didn't think it needed a sequel. So it was, kind of like the same thing with what was it, The Last Exorcism a couple years ago. Like the first one was good enough, and then they made a second one, which was just bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the Darth Maul one? Which one is that?
That's Insidious.
That's Insidious.
Darth
Next.
Maul.
Let's
All
go.
right. Well, we're ready to move on to the best of.
We've been like doing this for 40 minutes, Schnars. We are way behind.
All right. So we're moving to the best of. We're going to talk about 2 honorable mentions because they were actually pretty close, and then we'll move into the top 10. The way that I wanted to work this is I basically pulled the person who had the movie highest on their list of the group here, and you can. I'll just like name that person, and they can kind of riff as they would like. The first one, the honorable mention number 2. So this was on 6 different lists of the 16. Average place, so I'll give you. So it averaged roughly 7th on those lists, and it didn't make any first. It didn't have any first place votes. That movie is Bone Tomahawk. And, so Casey actually had it the highest, but he's going to talk about the next movie. So I'll just throw out
Breakfast. The movie.
Right. I mean, it's funny because I thought a pretty good show on it. Eric then like came away from that show like thinking
I
it was,
can't
like,
remember anything
movie.
about that movie except Breakfast.
Get the fuck out of here! The crazy white skin.
Wait, one other thing:
American
Breakfast and the
dudes.
Death Whistle.
Yeah, the Death Whistle.
At
I
least
don't
David
know.
Arquette's team.
That's not what that sounded like.
I kind of wavered back and forth on the movie during the show, and I had it on my top 10 list. I thought it was. I look back on it now fondly. I don't know. So
I will
that's
say
kinda
Kurt
where I'm at.
Russell's beard in that movie, top 10 material.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Facial hair in general in that movie was strong.
Strong.
So, and the old guy, I can't remember his name now, but
He was awesome.
Damn.
Slim good body.
Yeah, slim good body, also strong. So yeah, that's honorable mention number
Chicory.
2. Yes, yeah. Honorable mention number 1 was We Are Still Here. And
really?
2
yeah.
movies, not even on my list, bro.
That's not where I even thought where you were going with that.
So that appears on 5 lists. Average place on those lists was 6th, and it was Casey's number 1 film. So
Whoa!
Wow.
I love that.
Wow. Bold move.
I've watched that movie at least 3 to 4 times throughout this year since we first, because I watched it once beforehand. I'd watch before we discussed it. I watched it when we discussed it. I've watched it like twice since. I love that movie. I love the atmosphere of it. I think it's great.
I can tell.
It's the first movie that's actually creeped me out in a long time since we've been doing this show. When I first watched this movie, I had all the lights off in the living room. My wife was in the other room. I was laying on the couch in the dark watching the movie. She came out. She's only 5 foot tall, so she's easy to miss. But she comes through in the dark, turns the lights on in the kitchen, and I actually jumped off the couch yelling, "Oh, shit!" because I didn't know she was there. That's how into that movie I got. I loved it.
I'm not trolling. I wasn't going to put it on my worst list, but I was like, I had it in the pool there.
Oh no!
I just thought it was
had in the pool
overrated.
for my best. It was probably like top 15.
Gotta say, Jay Schnaps, both of those movies nowhere near my list.
I gotta bring my list up because I'm pretty sure I included it, but I don't even know anymore.
I have everybody's list. Mark, you did not include it.
What?
I'm just telling you. What I told you.
I think I was drunk when I made my list.
Not that.
Wouldn't be surprising.
So it was on 6 lists. Basically, and you got. I mean, I'll jump to number 10. To make it onto the top 10 list, you basically had to have at least 8 votes. Like half of the people had to name the movie. The one exception was the number 10 movie, and that's Goodnight Mommy. I'll talk about. I had it number 4 on my list, or no, number 3, and it actually was number 1 on Andy's list. So.
I didn't see that one.
So that's number 10, you said? Goodnight Mommy?
Yeah, that's number 10 for the year. So it was on six total lists. It averaged out about 6th. But like I said, it was first on one list. I had it pretty high on my list.
I don't know what it was. Like, I liked that movie, and I had it in the kind of pool for my list. But at the end of the day, I just had other stuff I kind of wanted to include over it.
Yeah, I wasn't on the show when you guys talked about it, but I did watch it. And I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad.
It was, I think like a lot of it comes down to...
It's a weird trailer. It's kind of misleading trailer, I feel like.
Super weird
trailer. I feel like it's hard to sell that movie in any sort of trailer. Like, yeah.
But I think so much of it comes down to like how you felt about the twist. I mean, and that's true of a lot of movies. But I know you guys spent a lot of time talking about it on the show. And for me, like that shit was like completely out of nowhere.
Oh, it was for me too. Yeah.
And I was completely bowled over by the movie. I just thought it was really good.
I really wish I could have been on that show. That was the.
I wish you could be around more too, Mark.
That was the show. That was the show I had to dart out
like
on.
Like for my plays in soccer games.
And the cat's in the cradle and the seal of the spoon.
Listen, I'm feeling that way about multiple members of the show this year, Joe. So it's a little too close. Too close.
Snap! Yeah. So Goodnight Mommy coming in at number 10. Yeah. It was one of the sort of like most divisive movies. So like a lot of people had it at the very bottom of their list, and then it made the top of a couple lists, and that was about it.
Was it anybody's worst?
Their least, did they?
No, it wasn't on anybody's worst.
Just curious.
No, in fact, none of the movies on our final top 10 were on anybody's worst.
Man,
it was. I just
you know what?
I'm lots of good movies this year.
Feeling pretty good about this list, Schnars. I feel like we kind of nailed it this year.
Oh, it's a strong list. All right, simmer down. We got 8, 9 movies to get through here. So yeah, I'll jump to number 9. I'm gonna let Mark speak about it. This movie was on 8 lists. The movie is Spring.
Spring. So I had Spring at number 7 on my list. It's one of those that like I don't really think got that much hype. I think people wanted us to watch it. It was just really interesting. I just thought that it was one of the more memorable movies this year. Like it's not even necessarily scary or anything, but for me, a movie being memorable like moves it pretty high up the list. And just like the transformation scenes alone, I feel like make it just you know really memorable in my mind. So I can see
you like
I could-
Amore. I think
Yeah.
you like,
You make it the squid love.
a little,
you like tentacle
little,
sex. Eh?
little romantic, little.
So yeah, this movie, I didn't have it on my list. It definitely was kind of in that like final,
I could
group.
see it not making it on people's lists for any number of reasons, but
But
Yeah,
we had
mine.
2 people. So yeah, one person had it at number 2, I think Spencer, and then Shelton had it at number 3. So that it was pretty high up on a lot of
Well,
folks.
Shelton's
those are
off.
some
It was number
those are
10
some
for me.
fancy people. That
Shelton's
makes-
off the reservation. Let's be honest. He's
Casey,
crazy.
Joe, and Mark each
Just
had
kidding.
it on theirs.
I had it
Shelton
at
wears a sport coat. Okay.
that sport coat has got to just have holes in it.
Actually, according to him, that's literally the only time he ever wore that sport coat was at Horror Hound Weekend, and now it's his thing forever.
Yeah, because you bullied him about it.
Because
Hey
that's
there,
how it
Tuna.
works.
That's how it works.
That making Lewis puke with his
Oh
butt.
Lord.
He did.
All right.
Next
number 8. This movie also made 8 lists, and it starred the dreamy Mark Duplass. That movie was Creep. Eric, you had it the highest of the group here.
I would love to talk about Creep, Schnars.
Please do.
Fun fact, I love found footage movies.
I thought you were gonna say, "Fun fact, you're a creep."
This was the year of the dupless. Like whether you hated the Lazarus Effect, whatever. Like how many Blumhouse movies did we see? How many things did we see that if he wasn't in it was produced by him? This dude, out of a cannon this year, and very much in the horror realm. Creep is creepy as hell. Like it's a weird movie. It's so bizarre. It's got this incredibly memorable character, and it's so simple. Like there's nothing to it. There are no effects. There's 2 people in the entire movie, right? I don't even think you ever see anybody else, right?
Basically, like uncomfortable eye contact. The movie.
Like you hear the sister, and that's it. I think. Like, and then you just have the 2 actors. It's got a great twist ending. You got the werewolf character. What's that guy's name?
Oh yeah,
Peach
Mr.
Fuzz?
Peach Fuzz.
Yeah.
Forget
yes.
about
yeah,
it,
yeah.
man. Like I'm always saying this every year. Found footage is not overdone because it can't be, because it's all about, you can tell any kind of story with found footage.
Yeah.
You just got to do it right. And Creep was like the perfect. I got really jazzed up about
That
Creep.
that Peach Fuzz scene is legit one of the best scenes of the year.
I watched it with
Well,
my
any
wife.
of you
and
remember
she
the
was
song?
she was very. She's like,
do you remember the
What
song,
was
Casey?
this?
I'm
No, I
Peach
don't.
Fuzz. I don't know. It was high.
He was like
pitched,
doing
so-
this little
Yeah,
dance.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
I should.
ending, the
Go ahead,
ending
Mark.
of that movie alone, like I think I have it at 6 or 7. Maybe at 6. The ending to me was one of the only endings this year where like you watch a movie at night and you want to give yourself a little bit of time before you go to bed. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
stop
Oh, yeah.
thinking about it.
So I had it at 4, and I'm looking at like my top 3. In a weaker year, this could have been a 1, but I had 3 that I just loved so much this year.
It's just I mean, it sounds really funny to say that Creep is creepy, but I couldn't really describe it any other
It's
way.
the best way to describe it. It's so on the
Probably
nose.
John's word of the day. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That episode.
Today's
Joe,
word of the day is crepe.
gotta get your shots in.
Tell me
Crepe.
I'm wrong.
It's a fine French food.
So it's also the start of a fun trend we can track the rest of the show. Eric and Mark were the only 2 that had it out of the OG crew, and there's a strong amount of agreement between Eric and Mark this year on the lists. So
Ooh,
keep
same
your eyes
brain.
peeled for that.
That's
Same
probably
brain, bro.
scarier for me than it is for Eric.
Nothing scares me, Mark. I'm an open book.
So the next movie actually was not on either Eric or Mark's list, but it was on the rest of our lists. It was on 9 total lists. It came in right around 5th place when it was on a list, and that was The Final Girls. And
Aw.
Joe is going to talk about it.
I can't believe you didn't have that on your list, Eric. I feel
Yeah,
like
I was
you'd
a big
love-
defender of that movie, but it's a strong year, man.
Huh.
It took a lot to make my list this year.
I thought it was very like tongue in cheek. I had a blast with it. Like it was one of the few movies that like this year that I would probably go back and watch again, just because I thought it was fun. I feel like it's definitely like a very like Halloween movie you can kind of put on with a bunch of buddies and just kind of hang out and watch. I don't know. I don't know what
Just
you guys
a
thought.
movie about mothers and daughters
Just
with your buddies. No, I actually 100% agree with you. I didn't have it super high on my list, but like when I finished watching it at first, I was kind of like pretty good. Like I enjoyed myself. I laughed a ton. The more I think about it, I want to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
It's like something I would definitely rewatch, and that's sort of what made me ended up including it.
I think even there's like horror comedies that like even what is it? What We Do in the Shadows. Like I thought that was funny, but it didn't. There weren't any moments where I legitimately like laughed out loud, and I felt like Final Girls and
I laughed a lot during What We Do in the Shadows.
We might talk about that movie later. All right, so just
I'm guessing.
I got a good
Maybe.
feeling.
Yeah.
simmer your jets, folk.
Peter's not coming to the meeting.
Yeah. So the Final Girls. Any other thoughts? It really is.
What
I'm
number was
into
that on
it.
our
Like
list?
We're at number 7.
I could have easily swapped it out for my number 10, but my number 10 was my my one I was going to champion this year. So,
Eric, we might have to come back to that because you and I were the only ones that included that said film, and it really hurt me that it didn't make the cut. But it is what it is.
If it's not on the list, just say it.
It's unfriended. It was
Oh.
it was
Really?
I had unfriended it at like number 5 or 6.
I'm
actually.
sorry,
I had
man.
it really high.
Unfriended was fucking really good.
It
I
was
didn't
just
see it.
super smart. It was really. I was really surprised.
Like I think
how
people
well made
dismissed
was.
it because it was like teenagers and this kind of funny conceit, and people are like, "Oh, fucking kids with their Spotify." But I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, agree.
It's
Evan
a great
had
rental
it.
too. At this point, like it's a great like Redbox. It's probably not in Redbox anymore.
To be fair, I had old man syndrome when we got in the theater for this because it took off and it started off with the whole thing on the laptop screen, and then it kept going, and I literally turned to my wife and said, "Is this whole movie gonna be this?"
Yeah, that
I
does
don't-
sound like thing an old man would say.
I don't know if I ever got to talk about it during the show, but I watched that on a plane on my laptop, and it is fucking weird. No, I'm saying like you should like if you were considering renting this movie, watch it on
That's
your
how
laptop.
you do it. Yeah.
Because
Is that
like
meta? Is that
the
considered
whole-
meta?
Yeah, I
No,
think so,
well,
Joe.
It literally, if you go to full screen, you can sit back and you're like, it feels like you're fucking watching it through this girl's laptop. It's weird.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Unfriended. That was
You
my
know what, man? Like
little,
that was one that I feel like there was an odd amount of hate for that pre it coming out, like before it coming out. I feel like a lot of horror fans had written it off, and I think it was a mistake because I think it's worth a watch.
We've now diverged pretty hardcore onto Unfriended, so
That's fine.
let's jump back. Number 6. Eric's actually going to get to talk about this one. This was on 11 lists, so already at number 6, we've got a pretty large majority of folks having voted for things, and there's a ton of agreement basically at the top of all the lists. So number 6 was The Visit.
Who would have thought?
Eric.
Yeah, exactly.
You had this the highest of.
So I had The Visit at number 5, and considered putting it higher. Honestly, and again, found footage. When I see well-made found footage, I want to champion it. And this movie was really, really good. Like non-annoying kid actors, a great, really simple setup, an awesome, like nice isolated scenery, and the whole finale with the like confrontation and the twist. It was just really masterfully done as a found footage film. And I think such a nice like story being a surprise from M. Night Shyamalan, you know what I mean? So, and as much as you'd like to talk smack about a dude like that, I really love to see him kind of come back a little bit with something that was solid.
It was, I mean, it was a really good movie. I also, I think I had it at either 4 or rather 6 or 7. And yeah, I mean, in other years, this could have been like top 3.
I go off gut with these lists, honestly, and a lot of that, like Mark was saying, is about memorability. Like I'll read down your list, and my immediate reaction to something is whether or not it gets tossed to the side or thrown into the pile.
Yeah,
like,
but the
I was like,
grandparents
oh man, The Visit. Yeah.
The grandparents were super memorable. Like
Yeah,
those two actors were just fucking knocking.
Hashtag poopy diaper.
Ugh.
Yeah.
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 Poopy diaper.
No
So
me gusta.
bad.
That movie went there in a way that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best use of diaper this year.
Yeah. Poopy diaper.
Most effective use of adult diaper this year.
Oh Lord. Okay, are we ready? Should we move on?
Yes.
Number 5. We are now at a point where we've got a lot of first placers coming up. So number 5, it was on 11 list. It was number 1 once, and that was to Mr. Joe. The movie is Krampus.
Oh, Joe! Wow.
Oh, I loved that
Twist.
movie.
You.
And it was also the last movie I saw before I made my list, which probably had something to do with it.
Recency bias.
Yeah. No, I thought it was great. Like, I had a blast watching it. I mean, I know some people had trouble with the ending, but I kind of, came up with my own opinion.
Grinches, am I right, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually now kind of forgive the ending now that I've had some distance from it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's, it's like a fun holiday movie. Like, I will put that there with, like, Gremlins now every year and
Like,
watch
what a
this
weird thing. Again, like, you talk about memorable stuff in 2015. That's one you're always going to remember,
Yeah, I am still blown away by the cast of that movie and the
Yeah.
fact that those guys were in there.
Full Keckner.
Yeah.
2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, John. David Keckner movie
Was
in the
he
top 10.
last year?
Last year was Cheap Thrills.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
It
right.
was like high up, too.
Yeah, it was number 4 last year. I do have the previous year's lists pulled up. I've some fun facts I can throw
That
out.
would be actually a really fun thing. Are there any other actors that made it in like the last 2 years?
Back to back.
Keckner might be the king.
There's probably some others. Like Godzilla had so many goddamn people
That's
in
true.
it.
That's true.
Um,
I don't want to
Keckner
derail
had
us.
made
I just
his-
think it's an interesting thing to look at maybe later.
If Keckner had made his O face in this one, would you guys have ranked it higher?
I do feel like I do need to ask Casey. You were the only one who did not have this on your top 10.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, all right. Then
I wasn't on that
explains it.
episode, so I haven't been out to see it yet.
I would check it out. Like that seems like one you'd be into.
Yeah,
It's very
that's-
whimsical.
That's one that the whole family wants to see, so we're making it a family trip.
It's about
There you
that
go.
time of year.
Still out there. It's still out there for the for Christmas viewing experiences.
Yep.
All right, we're moving into the top 4. This movie was on 13 of 16 lists. It was on average in 4th place. It was twice number 1. Not to anyone on the show though. Mark is going to talk about Crimson Peak.
Yeah, I just looking at my top 5, like it's kind of hard to place these, but I thought that, it seems to me that Guillermo del Toro has kind of found his sweet spot now, which is
Unless you consider like making money, in which case, not maybe.
right. No, that's not
I think that movie ended up doing okay.
It's more
Did it?
about like he has these like really kind of gleefully cheesy sensibilities and is just like really going for it, and I think that Crimson Peak is like a perfect example of that. It's not like the scariest movie this year, but it's definitely has like the most memorable atmosphere of any movie this year, and I think like there's just lots of visuals that stick with me, and I think that I don't know, it was just so fun to watch. It wasn't like, I don't know, it's not like the scariest or craziest horror movie, but just as like an overall film and sort of project, I just thought it was super fun.
I would say definitely my surprise in 2015. Like I was not expecting to enjoy that nearly as much as I did, and it is on my list.
Yeah,
it was just like weirdly violent in spots.
It's so like it's got this great emotional core to it. It's, for my money, like easily the most beautifully crafted film of 2015. It's just a lot of memorable stuff in it.
It was number 1 for Shelton and Chris H. Yeah, I had it really high. Mark and I were the highest on the list. I had it at number 4, and I thought it was just an awesome movie. It was gorgeous. The story was interesting, and the acting was really strong. Joe, you were the only one who did not have it. Would you like to speak to Crimson Peak?
The same thing. I didn't see it. My
all right.
list this year.
I'm going to stop
probably-
asking why people didn't rank.
My list probably would have been a lot different this year if I could have made it out to the theater more. Because I honestly, last year I put Babadook on my list, and I hadn't seen it. And this year I almost put.
What? Wait a second.
I almost put
Not
Crimson
to
Peak.
besmirch the whole process here, but
No, to be fair, he had it pretty low down his list. I was just
great.
I mean, I
Okay.
assumed I would like it, and then I finally saw it, and I did. So
Yeah, I
I
did
stand
not.
by my decision. I mean, I would ask you guys, how are like the feel of Crimson Peak and the feel of the Woman in Black? Like, to me, they had sort of a similar look to it. At
I
least
think
from the
Crimson
trailer.
Peak is better.
Oh yeah, I'm
Crimson
sure.
Peak
I'm
is-
sure
Crimson
it
Peak
is.
is less spooky ghosts and things.
Yeah,
it's
It's as much of a horror movie.
it's very much
like
it's
a-
more like a Post, like an Edgar Allan Poe story. Kind
Yeah,
of
I was
thing.
gonna say it's a little more. There's more like gothic.
Like an old Vincent Price
Plot.
movie, but good.
Yeah.
But
Some
Well,
of those
and
old
they
Vincent Price
also-
movies are fine.
Oh, you mean like
are they,
House of
John? Are they?
Haunted Hill?
Yes, they are, Eric.
And if you're talking about visuals and stuff, it's like they took the Woman in Black and like cranked up the color and just made
That
it
was-
like almost like comic book.
I really like the Woman in Black, and that's why I was kind of excited to see this.
Oh yeah, I think you're gonna like it, Joe. It's
Oh, I'm
If
sure I
it's-
will.
The atmosphere is spot on with Woman in Black, but it's just not as much of a horror story. It's a good story though.
And another amazing cast. This was like the year of the great like ensemble cast. I feel like too.
yeah.
So,
Eric, I did look it up, and I'm gonna give this one to you. It had a 74 million worldwide on a 55 million production budget.
Worldwide.
That's
like,
not getting it done.
it's
No,
not
no,
great.
that's real bad. You don't want to be that close. So, yeah, poor guy. He'll probably cry himself to sleep on top of a fucking pile of money. So,
I mean, I don't know how.
Does he?
like,
What has he done that's made a ton of money?
well, the Hellboy movies do fine. I mean,
And he's got the Strand TV show now.
Yeah,
so
he's
got
producing
Pacific
that.
Rim make any money, or am I just making that up because I wanted it to be
What?
real?
what's that?
Pacific Rim.
No, I think that did really bad too.
I don't think it did
Not,
really
not
bad.
really bad, but it didn't do well. I think even the Hellboy movies never really do
Pacific
well.
Rim was so good. Oh my god.
I don't know. He's had some stuff as a producer. He's had some stuff as a director. That's been
Yeah, whatever. Del Toro's doing fine. What's next, John?
Yeah. All right. We're moving into the top three. And number 3 made 12 lists, 2 first places, average of third on the list that it did appear on. The movie's Ex Machina. And I actually had it at number 1, so I will.
Nice snars.
I can speak about it a little bit. Yeah. The top 3 for me, and my top 3 included Goodnight Mommy, but this really was like a 3-way race for me in terms of like the best.
Yeah, it was.
The best
Three-way
movies.
climax.
And I don't know, like I like when I guess if I'm to use the rubric that Eric kind of tossed out there of memorability, like Ex Machina, I might watch that movie 50 more times. Like I don't know, like
It seems like one that's got a lot of layers to it too, like on repeat viewings.
Yeah.
well, and Oscar Isaacs. I mean,
He was awesome.
It just
Creepy.
fucking.
Do you remember
crushes.
his creepy sweaty sit-ups in that, like working out in that movie?
Yeah. Well, honestly, the dance.
It's that
sequence-
dude, right?
Dance.
It's the
The
Google
dance
guy.
is the.
It's one of the creepiest scenes of the year. Like
It's
so
kind of
weird.
crazy that like in years past and even this year, there's a lot of kind of paranormal movies still kicking around, but like this and Creep are just two very like. I mean, this one's like crazy sci-fi kind of, but the tension of being in a enclosed space with like a very real person was just kind
It
of.
had a great pacing too, like the kind of way it built up, and it's fascinating because it's so perfectly near future and where we are in 2015. Like this
Yeah,
will
100%.
probably happen in
Yeah.
our lifetimes. I don't know. I mean, I could see that, and that's what to me what was so fascinating about it. Like it was kind of you could see it being kind of just a step ahead of where we are now.
Eric's talking
They,
about the part where they design a person based on your porn profile. That's
Yeah, well, listen,
That's
they're
what I was
already
gonna
working
say.
on that, I'm sure.
It deserves high marks just for the look on every guy in the theater's face when they've had that line where they're
Yeah.
making her look like you're from your porn habits. You're all like, "Whoa,
Clear the
shit."
cache on your phone.
I gotta go.
I had it at number 3, and I think it was one of the best sci-fi movies we've ever done on the show. I'm gonna bold
Yeah.
statement there, John.
Yeah, no, I'm.
No, well, I had a lot of people when I was like talking about this with like sort of non-horror people, and I mentioned that like Ex Machina was like one of the best horror movies. They're like, I didn't know that was really a horror movie. And I to a certain extent, I like struggled a little bit, and I was kind of like, well,
It's one of those things that we'll make exceptions for, like really good-looking sci-fi movies.
well, but like at the end of the day, to me, there's
although it gets
it's like-
pretty dark.
well, it's like Alien to a certain extent. Like Alien is mostly a sci-fi movie that ends up being a horror movie, and I think this is in the same way, right? if anything, this movie ends on a it ends in a similar way to Alien. I don't really want to spoil it.
There are a lot of horror aspects to this film.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's
it's very thrillery.
Yes.
See, I didn't put this on my list.
The video for Thriller.
I didn't put this on my list. I love this movie. I think it was great. I saw it as more of a sci-fi movie myself, so I didn't include it.
You should have read Schnarz's ballot there, buddy.
What the fuck?
I saw it on the ballot, but I just considered it more of a sci-fi, so I didn't add it on.
But Schnarz makes the ballot.
It made the ballot, and we did. There was one. What was the other movie that everyone? Well, Jurassic World. We kept off the ballot.
I was gonna say if we allowed Mad Max on the list, it would have been everyone's number one.
Yes.
I don't know. It would have been close. I think.
You don't think so?
It would have been closer than you think.
I could have maybe saw like including Jurassic World, but I agree that it's probably a good idea to leave Mad Max off because like what are we? You're just taking up a spot in the list at that point that could be highlighting another interesting film. I just
think that this year is a really interesting year because in years past we've been a little less discerning, mostly because there just weren't that many good movies, and this year we could be discerning. Like there's movies that this is a rare year where I probably could have done a top 15 because even as we're talking through these movies, I'm like, oh, I forgot Deathgasm, and oh, I forgot something else, and
yeah. I mean, like the list of movies that got 5 or more votes is actually pretty long. Like that didn't make the top 10, but got 5 or more.
I gotta say though, like we tried to be anyway, really clear, and I think we'll even double down on this next year. But like it's tough. We're wrangling a lot of people. I should listen and I don't when I should. But like, Schnarz made his list. We kind of had an open period for suggestions and then that was it. And like there was
making a list and checking.
There were some people that maybe should have paid closer attention. But but overall I feel like there was way less like consternation about this year than previous years because we kind of were like, all right, these are the rules. Here's the list. We got to move forward here.
The only person I should say that sent me a list that had a movie not from this year was Mr. Eric Noel.
Didn't we do that this year, though? No, whatever. That's fine. But didn't we do that this year?
I think we might have done it like the first couple weeks of the year.
It did not make it to the published list.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was not on.
But listen, that's fine. Like I want.
You can't take it away from him.
I want Schnarz though to be like he's the god of this experiment. So if he doesn't want something on there. Strike it off, man. That's your role in this situation.
Was the movie though? I'm curious.
If I can
exists. I thought we reviewed that this year, so I was like, oh yeah, it was like an honorable mention. I didn't put it on my list.
So if I can like just quick bring it back into Ex Machina for a second, it's the only movie on my list that would be a like unconditional recommend to someone who's not necessarily into horror movies. Like if you can tolerate thrillers that are occasionally violent and super creepy, it's good. But like
it is pretty hard sci-fi though. Like that'd have to be a little nerdy, I might think.
Yeah,
probably. All right.
People like dumb movies, Mark. You ever met like a real normal person? They like dumb movies.
You know what I watched not that long ago? Spy. Have we ever talked about Spy? That's a dumb movie, but I laughed a good bit.
It's a good movie. It's a good dumb
movie.
It's pretty
funny.
Yeah.
I got a good
was dumb, but I laughed.
Anecdote. If you want to hear it,
Casey,
it'll be quick.
Yes.
I got a call out of nowhere just a couple weeks ago on my cell phone from my stepdad because they got an iPad not too long ago. I got him set up on my Netflix, things like that. So I
already like where this is going.
From my stepdad, and he says, "Hey, what's that?" All he says when I answer is, "Hey, what's that movie with Denzel Washington in it?" I'm like, what? And he's like, "The one where he beats up people." Like,
the Equalizer? Keep going.
I've just thrown out names. I'm like, The Equalizer? He's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, okay. And he's like, is it on Netflix? I'm like, no. Okay, thanks. And he hangs up. That's it.
He's like, Casey,
what's... got it in like more than 2 guesses.
Casey, what's a porn tube?
Oh, that's a whole nother
What's
story.
An ex-hamster? It won't go away.
I've met Casey's stepdad, and the only thing he said to me, except for us talking about tools, was beware of the water that comes in brown bottles.
That's awesome.
I have not heeded his warning, by the way.
Moving on, John.
Oh Lord! All right, we move on to the top 2. Really interesting top 2. This number 2 movie was on 15 of 16 lists, so it only missed on 1 list. That said, it did not receive a single first place vote, which I thought was kind of crazy. It's the first.
I know what it is.
It's the most times that's ever happened in terms of a movie that got this many votes without a number one. Casey's going to talk about it because he had it the highest. It's What We Do in the Shadows.
I love this movie. It's hilarious, and that's like one of the only movies that came out of this year. This movie's so good and the writing's so clever is that there's a lot of quotes from this movie that stick with you throughout the year. Somebody brings that movie and everything. The first thing everybody mentioned is, "Hey, we're werewolves, not swearwolves." It has some really great writing in it. The jokes are hilarious. It really sticks with you, and there's a lot going on from different eras and the way they spoof on the vampire genre. So it's a blast.
Yeah, and another movie that like I'm looking at my top 4 easily could have been number ones in years past, and now that because I'm good at deduction, Schnars, now that I know what our number one is, in a year where that movie doesn't come out, this was easily my number one.
Yeah, so Eric, you had the top 3 in order on your list.
Boom!
I think you were the only one. Interestingly, though, Mark and several other people, including Colin and Jason, had numbers 2 and 3 flipped, but otherwise had the same top 3.
I'm not gonna lie, Schnars, I actually do take enormous pride in that because I feel like usually my lists are way off and I find it confusing.
Well, so Eric, it's funny. Mark had the top 5 movies correct, just with one out of order.
So not correct?
Yeah. Well, and then you and
God, why do you always have to take it from me, man? What the fuck?
you, Eric and Mark had the top 6 on their list. I think you guys
I'm
were
in tune
the
with
only
the people, all right?
I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
But
so
the fact that it is
Brothers Newell on fleek.
Sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, John, but the fact that it was no one's number one is super interesting. I think it almost more has to do with what is the inevitable number one, which if you watched or heard about any horror movies, like we all know what it's going to be. But the
Paddington.
It's really interesting because like I loved this movie. I thought it was so funny. I did have this moment of like, could I just have a straight up like parody comedy? Because like it's more of a comedy than something like Cabin in the Woods, which was a number one on a lot of our lists the year that it came out. So I did have this moment of like, is this horror? I mean, it's obviously horror, but it felt weird to put it at number one. So it was almost this like self-conscious bump down to whatever out of that 3 for me.
Yeah, I mean, it is super interesting. I think we talked about too. There was a lot of other movies that got number one votes, and there were a lot of movies that got more than one number one vote, and it didn't get any. And I think everybody basically was having the same thing that Mark you're talking about, which is like, I love this movie. It's in my top 5, but it's like they had a hard time putting.
It was a tough year, man. It was had to bring your A game.
Well, and I can't remember I think, Eric, you might have been talking about it when we were talking about Final Girls, or maybe Joe. In any event, somebody was talking about, maybe it was Joe, was talking about What We Do in the Shadows. And like, it doesn't have the same emotional core as something like
Final Girls. It doesn't have
does.
an emotional core, period.
No, I mean, there's some stuff going on there, but it's definitely much more in the Christopher Guest camp of like, just introduce funny
very
characters.
Irreverent and
Yeah. Versus like Final Girls, which like almost was like weepy at times. I mean, it was like straight up like
it was real. It was a little intense in a way I wasn't expecting. Sure.
No, but and I think what that does though is that there's people who can connect. If you can connect to that intensity, the intense emotional element, and it's really funny, you're gonna walk away feeling even better than someone might ever walk away feeling good about What We Do in the Shadows. Again, great movie.
Very in touch with my emotional side.
There you go. One interesting point is if we had just gone with the OG vote, I tallied this separately. What We Do in the Shadows would have been.
To be clear, when you say OG, you mean this people in this box
5,
right here.
The 5, yeah. So excluding New Class and the Sophistical Crew and all that.
Oh, we got a whole like thing going on, like
there's a lot of crews.
Ecosphere. There's like
it's 16 folks. So real quick, number 1, It Follows. Eric, you had this at number 1. I think you and Mark actually both had this at number 1.
I might have been hurt if it wasn't number 1, and I can't really explain why. That's how much I loved It Follows.
Oh, you're gonna love me.
I was gonna say, so it was on 15 of 16 lists. It had 9 first place votes. We had 1 person abstain, and it was Mr. Casey.
I'm sorry, Casey. This doesn't make your top 10. You are batshit crazy. Like, I'm not saying it's got to be number 1, but literally the 10 movies of the year, you're nuts.
It didn't make my list. It didn't make my top 10.
Yeah, I know.
It didn't
That's
make
why
my
I'm
worst.
calling you insane.
The ultimate thing for this movie with me is when it came down to it, I looked through that whole list, looked through the ballot. I always would take the whole ballot, mark down everything I've seen for the year from the ballot. Then I start marking the ones I liked and everything like that. I liked that movie. I ultimately forgot about it. I thought it was forgettable. So by the time it was like 4 days later and somebody had it pop up on their list on the site, and I thought, oh shit, I forgot all about that.
Forgettable.
It might have squeaked in at number
Crazy.
10. My number 9 was Cub. I like that one better. I enjoyed it. I thought that was weirder. I could probably swap that, but it was ultimately a forgettable movie for me.
Don't do it, Casey.
Well, Casey, 15 out of 16 people think you're wrong.
Well,
I was kind of on the fence on it. I don't like teenagers. I think that was my.
I think putting it on the worst list.
Well, if that's the case, Joe,
far.
we should maybe quit this show now because I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there are a lot of teenagers in horror movies.
Yeah, I know.
Eric, why don't you tell us what you liked about It Follows, and we can go from there.
It is awesome. Done.
Yeah.
I mean,
Full stop.
You know what? It
And
was
we're
like
done.
it was a very fascinating mix to me of like influences from Carpenter to Wes Craven, but wrapped in this like very modern kind of package. Like a lot of people kind of ripped on this as being like a hipster horror film, and I don't know, I might call those people assholes, but also I would say that I think those aspects are things that made this really interesting. You have this bizarre surrealist thing running through it where like the seasons are changing. What it basically does is, and this is why it's so effective to me, you have that scene in Halloween where Jamie Lee Curtis is trying to get in the house. She's trying to unlock the door. She can't get it open. And Michael Myers is stalking. The great shot, like stalking across the street, and they're cutting back and forth. Somebody like took that and made an
made it
entire
into a
movie
movie.
out of the tension in
Yeah.
that scene. And that is the best scene in Halloween. And you throw the Disaster Piece soundtrack in, this electronic band that's just doing like incredible stuff, like throwback stuff right now. And to me, like nothing, John, you talk about like an emotional core. I think like to me, this hit me emotionally because while being a really great modern horror film, it's also hitting a lot of these like nostalgic tones for me.
Well, it stands out to me in terms of like even I guess we've been doing these lists in an organized way for about 5 years now. And it's probably one of the most original number ones we've ever had. Like it's not, some sort of huge blockbuster. It's not like a really great sequel. It's just like it has these kind of throwback aspects, but it's super original. Like I can't think of another movie like this.
You got to
really.
give it credit for doing something different, especially in this day and age where everything's been done and remade. Like, and at the end of the day, like I wasn't a big fan of the characters, and I didn't have any sort of connection to them. But because of that, like I still added it to my list because it's rare that you see something like this different.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting, right? Like we had, if you to Joe's point, 2012 and 2013 were Cabin in the Woods and Evil Dead, and those were both pretty heavily fan service type of movies.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like Cabin in the Woods is probably like the ultimate fan service movie. I mean, a fabulous movie and one that actually swept.
I think an alternate
this
title
group.
was actually fan service. The movie was the alternate.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and Evil Dead, interestingly, that year that it was number one, it only had one first place vote, and it was from none. It wasn't from any of us, but it was on every single list, and so it kind of just was like the best of like a really diverse crop that year. Last year was Snowpiercer, Babadook. Were one
oh
and
man,
two.
you remember how pissed people were that we made Snowpiercer our number one? It's hilarious.
but
Trolling.
Snowpiercer the same way was only number one on two people's lists, right? So like
last year was a
the
weird
first-
list, I feel like.
Yeah, but this was the first year where we had like a lot of agreement at the top, and a movie that like is still really unique. I should mention this It Follows basically swept the new class. So Evan, Spencer,
Ooh, you hear that, guys? That's winds
Jason,
of change coming up.
Fucking
Colin, Sophie, Luke, and Cece all had it at number one.
I know I'm being facetious, John, but there might be something to that.
No, I mean,
Millennials with their beeps and their boops
well, but
music.
Eric, like just to be clear, every other person had it at number two, except Joe and Casey. So, if there are winds of blowing,
Fuck all you youngins.
I see
all
what you're
you
saying here,
youngins.
guys.
John,
John,
did you make a list also parallel of who in this show was born in the 70s?
Fuck all you all.
throwing that out there.
Villains.
I did the math.
Joe's like,
I earned this.
Casey's
right
like,
here.
I saw Star Wars in the theater. F you.
I did. Fuck you all.
John, I have a very loaded meta question for you.
Please.
Do you feel like having two things? One, having a more dedicated writing staff and like organized writing staff, and also making an effort to get everyone to see most of these movies. Do you feel like that had an effect on the list? Because I feel like in years past, we're always like a movie comes up and like maybe Andy and Shelton have seen it, and we're like, I've never even fucking heard of that movie, but it somehow finds its way into
It's
the top
always
10.
Andy.
Well, we definitely had less.
It seems like way more cohesive.
Yeah, there was I actually did some numbers for you on this. So in terms of the list, the final 10, there was no ballot that had less, like the lowest number of votes that made the top 10 was 5. There were 2 people that had 5 movies on the final top 10. There was one person, and I actually wanted to see if you guys could guess.
On about.
No, I'm talking about like how much like agreement there was. So like
Sure. I'm with you, John.
Yeah. So like Joe had 6 of the top 10 movies named. There was one person who had 9 of the top 10 on their list. Who would you guess that it was?
Me.
No. So Mark and I were the most of the show. We had 8. Eric, you had 7.
So who was it?
I bet Evan.
It was Sophie.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Nailing it.
Sophie. Nice. Another interesting number that I'll throw at you. So I also looked at who was the sort of like closest in terms of basically like difference from the actual final score. So like you had to not just have the movie, but you had to have them in the right order. And Mark was actually the closest on that metric.
Nice. Nice.
So on like the most complicated, accurate metric,
you were number 1 and Eric was number 2. So
so was I like the furthest away from the final list?
Casey, you ended up not being the furthest, but you were close.
Can we shame who is the furthest?
It was Andy.
Okay. Well,
Andy was.
I want to point out my list
feels no shame for that.
Andy
hasn't been published on the site yet, but I have Sinister 2 and Insidious Chapter 3 in my worst, so I didn't get them confused. I thought they were equally as bad.
Nice.
How many of Andy's top 10 movies were German? I'm just curious.
No, well, that was the other thing I was going to say, Joe. It's actually
the top 100, which totally screwed up.
And then break it down by which ones are like Shiza videos.
No, I know Joe's joking, but I also felt like the list had a lot fewer. We I don't know if like we just didn't have that many foreign films. You basically had Goodnight Mommy, When Animals Dream, Deathgasm is obviously foreign.
Oh.
John, can we re-record the episode? I want to retroactively put Goodnight Mommy in my top 10. Can we re-record it and also do all these calculations over again?
I kind of have like a thought, and then we can kind of wrap it up, I guess. But well, there's just like
he's thinking again.
I know I'm busting on Joe and Casey here for being a little older, but I find like an interesting parallel between It Follows and Unfriended, and like I thought about this a lot this year because we've been doing this for 7 years. We're all getting older. And like at some point, there are teenagers in horror films, right? Like, and at some point you just age out of necessarily being able to relate to them. But I still want to like love horror. And I'm not saying you have to automatically buy into teenage characters, but like at some point as you age as a horror fan, you either have to say, I'm going to go into this movie and try to get something out of these characters, or you just pack up and go home and say F it. And I'm not like, this is not directed at Casey and Joe, but it's been something I've wrestled with a lot too.
Sounds like it is.
Well, because your perspective just changes at some point, right?
I totally agree. Like, yeah. And I mean, to your point, like that's kind of why It Follows. I couldn't connect with those characters, but I still appreciated that it did something different. I didn't see Gallows or Unfriended, but you're totally right. Like at a certain point, these movies get to, you know, they're targeting an audience that is not me anymore.
And they kind of, they always have like targeted that audience to some degree.
But like, I mean, go ahead.
No, because Joe, I was going to defend you by pointing out that your number 2 movie was Deathgasm, which is itself a movie about being a teen.
No,
and
for sure. In the 80s.
Well, but the point I would make is that like I actually think a lot of what people like, I mean, we've talked about this on the show, but like horror fans, and to Eric's point, if you want to like horror, you're gonna have to be able to connect to teenage characters.
You got to get over it at some point, right?
In the case of a movie like Krampus, you're gonna have to be able to connect to like children character, like, and I think horror fans maybe are more willing to do that than non-horror fans, and that's what, I mean, it's just coming back to the genre.
I think it depends on the characters. Like a likable character can be likable if that character is 18 or they're 30. Like in the case of It Follows, like I just found them to be like a little whiny. And if they had been twice as old as they were,
again, like that's a thing an old person says about a teenager, though. Like you're telling me you like the characters in the Friday the 13th movies. You didn't because they were all terrible, and you just wanted to watch them die.
No, but I also saw that movie when I was like 8, so
that's
my
exactly
nostalgia
my point.
like brings. Well, I can't even connect with like what a whiny person is when I'm an 8 because I was a whiny prick too.
That is my point. So I just like I'm posing
accepted is what I'm saying.
I'm posing this
accepted.
question to just like the wider horror loving audience because I find it just a really interesting like thought exercise because we're all getting older, man, and I have the same reaction sometimes where I'm like, oh god, this boner kid and his problems, what the hell.
No,
it's interesting though,
because I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it's interesting. It's a valid point.
To help back up your point though, it's interesting because my number one is We Are Still Here. Takes place in the 70s. It focuses on older cut people. Whatnot. So maybe there is something to that's why I connected that movie more.
Yeah, and I wonder I wonder how much like a movie like that or a movie like The Final Girls is relevant to a younger horror audience. I'm not saying it's not, and you're always going to have that percentage that just get into it and want to see that stuff, but I wonder
well, also like if you think about It Follows and Unfriended being like sharing a top 10, like It Follows is an older person writing a story about like teenage malaise kind of, and and Unfriended is more just like a straight up kind of like popcorn teen supernatural thriller. So it's like occupies some very interesting
I also think a lot of horror
space.
fans tend to write off like popular films or films that get into theaters as just like whatever mainstream crap, but you have to, I feel like you have to be able to look at that stuff and see how it is affecting just like the that's I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here, Schnars. Like that's the pulse of what horror is. Horror is bigger than just the people listening to this show. Like horror is sort of the people's genre in a lot of way. And so you're trying to, in order to tap into the pulse of your modern horror fan, like you have to be able to like try to watch that stuff and see what it's about. I think like I find it interesting. I'm always like,
I mean, we always, and we talk about this anytime it comes up, which is, this year, The Gallows, but, in past years, things like fucking Prom Night, Schram's Night. It's like we punish the movies that are just about that. Like you can do both things. Like you can make a good movie. I mean, and this again is like It Follows is like a really good movie that's like ultimately just about like teenagers and like
boning.
In some ways like what it's about to be a teenager.
You know
what
I can relate to, John?
The fears that you
bone
have.
And boning and bone stuff.
It's true.
Do we
At
ever
the end of the day, we
get
all like making love.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Do we ever get over those feelings?
That's why I loved Spring. That's why.
Out of nothing at all, Joe.
So anyway, I think that's an interesting theme for me. The year BGH done got old. It's and we're gonna continue fighting the good fight, I guess.
Also, the year I'd love to see the percentage of movies that we actually did end up watching this year versus previous years.
Yeah, no,
way higher than I'm.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I had a lot of trouble getting out to the theater this year. So.
Well, I tried to be conscious of playing a lot of catch up at the end of the year, and so there was like a movie like Unfriended. I ended up including that. Like, there was no reason for me to watch it other than like I was like pretty interested after listening to you guys talk about it. Honestly,
I would guarantee like especially like Crimson Peak probably would have made my list if I had seen it.
I think you're right, John. Mark and Sophie and I did nail that show.
Am I the only one on the podcast who had Deathgasm, John?
No, on this show, no. No, you and Casey both did.
Right.
I had it at number 6.
I just feel like I fell asleep at the wheel and in not including We Are Still Here or Deathgasm. I don't know what I would take out, but I just feel like
that movie, if I had seen that after Krampus, probably would have been my number one.
So Deathgasm
like
literally just, it was honorable mention 3. Like it was close.
Such a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on 5 lists. Spencer had it really high on his list as well.
Yeah.
I found it really fascinating now that we're on Slack, and then we can move on because we got to get going into tweets here. But now that we're on Slack, I find it really fascinating to get a view into like the process for the younger writers, and like they're just so plucky and excited and like, I dude, I'm not lying. I took 90 seconds to write my list, and I'm looking back at it now, and I'm like, yeah, I think I got it right.
Talk about,
but they're like, they were just so tortured about, oh god, I had to bump this movie, and then what's my?
I liked it.
Like,
it's awesome. I was really enjoying it.
To your point of like getting old, like, were you paying attention to the music discussion like a week ago, where they were all
Slack
like,
moves way too fast for me, dude.
like,
I just discovered today that there's a pain.
over, like My Chemical Romance.
My Chemical Romance.
What the fuck are you talking about?
So yeah, when My Chemical Romance came out, I was like starting to date my wife. It was like 10 years ago.
My wife.
So. But like, no, so I just discovered on Slack that you can open a pane that gives your mentions, so I can at least follow when I can figure out what the conversation is when somebody says
I'm gonna
my name.
create an Eric channel. This is about Eric.
Yeah, because otherwise, why am I even here?
So it follows. 2015.
Boom. I'm okay with it, John. I'm all right with it.
I dig it.
Feeling good, buddy.
It was a good list.
And
I agree. Thank you to all of the writers, all of the ballot submissions.
And thank you, I gotta say, like, and we'll talk about this, I guess, later too, but like the fans, man, like really came through for Bloody Good Horror this year and like showed us, like, I think gave us the energy to keep doing this for a long time because we realized like, oh shit, man, like there's people digging what we're doing. So
I got at least 2 more months in me.
That's it. No, like didn't we kind of start the year like with a new design, right? We launched last Halloween, so we were really kind of getting into the groove starting in 2015, and I've said this a lot lately, but it's been, I think, the best year since we kind of started this whole thing.
It is certainly the year with the most sustained effort by leaps and bounds.
Turns out trying feels good, Mark. I
think it's really nice to have like a crop of writers that actually get excited about it.
Well, again, like, to talk about us being old men, like, having young, like, really committed writers around has been awesome, and I feel like really lit a fire under all of our asses.
I think we're just doing video streaming so we can do like a live Viking funeral next year, and they can just put us all out on a raft,
throw us into the tar pit.
None of us write anymore, do they?
They're resting control.
All right, guys.
None of us. Joe wrote a list recently. I think Joe's winning actually in the recent writing category.
I've been writing the news every day for the last 2 years, guys.
It's
just not publishing.
Yeah, it's on.
I just got sick of putting commas in it.
It's on Creed Thoughts / Creed Thoughts.
This is garbage again, Joe. Not publishing.
All right, guys. That's it. 2015, the year in horror. But we got a ton of fan mail, so stick around. We will be right back.
So we hear something. Stop!
This is the movie that is just as real, just as close, just as terrifying as being there. Even if one of them survives, what will be left? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
Greetings from Tromaville. This is Lloyd Kaufman, president of Troma Entertainment and creator of The Toxic Avenger. You know, folks, when we're not making those great movies like Tromeo and Juliet and Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, the Troma team likes to kick back and listen to Bloody Good Horror because Bloody Good Horror is the best television there is.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter @BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back, except for Mark.
Oh, shit.
Why are you laughing, Joe?
Wasn't muted, apparently.
Oh, Lord.
Info at... Oh, God. You know what's funny? As I start to read the fan mail, I realize I didn't pull the fan mail, but we can do this. Info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. First up, Marty. Nope, that was last week. First up.
The rest of the show was so buttoned up, Eric.
First
Come
up,
on.
Danielle. Have you guys reviewed May with Anna Faris or Dead End with Lynn Shay? They're horrible, I know, but I love them and would love to hear your reviews. I know. Well, hold on. We'll get to it. We'll get to it, buddy. Hold on. Dead End is when I first realized my love for Lynn. She's the best. Hope this was short enough. Listen, I will not stand back while someone besmirches the name of May.
It's funny
that movie's
because
awesome.
like
May, which made our top 10 of the aughts or
Literally
something.
all time. No,
well, it's funny because if it like long-time listeners of the show, and I'm talking like real long-time listeners, will probably know about Eric's adoration of May and
So
other
good.
people. But I just as soon as you started reading that, I was like, oh, this is gonna be ugly.
That's fine. I still.
And I want to be clear that Anna Faris was good in May, but May was all about Angela Bettis.
Yeah. Dude, forget that. Sisto.
Yeah, him too.
Yeah, Sisto. Caitlin says, I just have to say that Team Joe and Team Schnars is still better than Team Twilight. Maybe Hot Topic will pick up an endorsement? I am Team Joe. Sorry, John, but your word game is weak. I don't even drink, and I'm pretty impressed by the connections Joe makes to the movies. Hashtag Team Joe.
Don't even start.
Shots fired.
Funny story. Eric and I, before we were killing time before seeing our 9 a.m. viewing of Star Wars, and together we went in Hot Topic. It was the first time I've been in there in probably 14 or 15 years.
Oh, wow.
They have a very large selection of the pop figures.
They had a wall of pops, my
Yeah.
friends.
Still selling an entire wall of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff, so nothing has changed in 15 years.
Of course they are.
I'm in there regularly with a 15-year-old, so yeah, that's pretty accurate description.
Well, it's funny because they do have good nerd stuff in there, so I like to go in there, but then I always feel weird.
And then someone stuffs you in a locker when you get out.
Their pops are way too expensive, though. They're like $13 a piece or something. That's horseshit.
Everything
I feel like
that's
John and I
expensive.
goof a lot, but I love him. I love him so
Oh.
much.
I don't know. I'm
Joe.
kind of liking this whole
Beautiful.
battle between you guys. Like, I like it. I like this Team Joe and Team Schnar's character.
Yeah, I don't think
just
your
like-
love rivals Eric's yet.
I just like that they have this like on again, off again, where like one is not on the show and they talk shit about the other
Oh
one,
my
and they just
God.
kind of alternate, and
We
they're
were
like
talking
never
about
on
this
the
on
show at the same
email.
time.
Was it the Hellions episode? I was on the train laughing hysterically as John had like an argument in his head with what he assumed I would be insulting him about during the word of the day.
He was
As you
pretty
were
dead
on
on,
the
too.
train, as you were on the train mouthing what you were gonna say.
I think I nailed it.
No, I think that's proof that Joe's winning because you totally psyched him out.
Yeah,
He was thrown.
you're in his head.
Yeah.
I just, listen, I've never forgiven Joe for leaving me in New York all by myself.
Well,
So,
All right, guys. Well, we got a first time here.
oh,
Strap in. This is from Rob from the UK. Thank you for providing such a brilliant podcast. He's from the UK, so I assume brilliant means like balls or something. Bollocks or whatever. Thank you for providing such a brilliant podcast. I'm a fairly new listener, and I must say I love everything about the show. I think I started listening around episode 325, and I was instantly hooked. Had to get myself signed up for Patreon for those old classic episodes. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. I have a little message for each of you guys. Eric, your Party Hard YouTube streams are awesome. I hope you do more in the future. Also, let Mark know I still use RSS feeds on a regular basis, so don't let him bully
So
you
that
about
makes
it.
a grand total of 7 over like 6 months. Congratulations, everyone.
anyone who mentions using RSS feeds, it's like guaranteed you're getting read on the
I
show.
might call that statistically significant, Mark, but what do I know?
I think you and I have a different definition of statistics.
Next up, Joe, she can't hear, right? So I can still
no,
say
she
stuff?
can't.
Okay, great.
But we are running late, so we have to say goodnight, Mia.
Good night.
All right.
Good
You sing,
Hashtag get a daughter.
You sing Dominic the Donkey to everybody?
That was a donkey. Okay.
All right, sweetie.
Nailed it. Next up, John, Google Plus really does suck. Casey, cheers for putting out the Instamatic. You make a really good podcast host.
Thank you.
Mark, sick music taste, dude. Here's some punk hardcore bands you should check out from the UK. Never X Again. He recommends a bunch of hard straight edge bands. So I think he's making assumptions about you, Mark.
As I'm drinking
Incorrect
scotch
assumptions, but
out
yeah.
of a Santa glass. Like
Hang the Bastard. Deal with it.
Right.
and Mind X Control. I don't know how to say things with X's in the middle of it. Sorry.
That band I have heard of.
Cardiff City Straight Edge Hardcore is what he calls that. That might as well be a description of Joe's music to me because that doesn't mean anything.
You know what?
No, that means that they don't drink or smoke. So.
Right. I love drinking and also straight edge bands, so that's an interesting.
I got to say recently, so I follow Joe and I are Spotify friends, which is why he knows and has been making fun of me for listening to Skrillex. So I'm like, off the heels of that, I see Joe listening to some song the other day, and I clicked on it. It was like a brown note, like it like really hurt my feelings after like 3 seconds. I was like, oh, like I know metal. I've heard metal. That was not. I don't know what that was, but it should be illegal.
Totally,
it was horrifying.
It's the day that Eric discovered cattle decapitation.
It was so fucked up. I was seriously like, whatever you think you've heard metal, I haven't heard anything. I'm afraid to listen to anything else. Oh God, Joe. I'm so much more frightened of you now.
It's such like a wide genre of music that like. You meet someone at work and you're like, oh yeah, like I listen to some men, and they're like, oh cool, I like Disturbed too, and you're like, no,
it was so hurtful.
That's not it.
What happened to you, Joe? God, I was listening to Skrillex because I like to get hype, man. You know, who doesn't like to get hype?
I'm trying to convince Mark to go see Pig Destroyer with me. But,
Please go, Mark. Come on.
This was the year that Joe and I very quietly saw Andrew WK together and saw Confetti
I can
Rain
get with that. That's cool. Hey.
Oh, it was so good.
That's a gentleman that likes to get hype, Mark.
Also, world's worst opening band, if I remember correctly. But
it was a guy doing his guitar, air guitar.
Sweet.
Was it? Oh no, you're right. There was a really awful.
There's like a really bad punk band that I think a lot of people actually like, but
they were local, like some local. Like...
Also, shout out to Cece's husband, who you will know from our spooktaculars dropping in with the tank tops. He has a fantastic music taste and runs like a music blog. So if you follow Cece Riots, our very own Cece on Instagram and Twitter, she will post pictures with her husband and follow him. I would tell you, I would actually recommend what his Twitter account is, but I can't find it right now. So just do some stuff.
You might call him the first dude of Bloody Good Horror.
Yeah. Sure.
Also, how is it that I don't have a screen cap of him in a tank top on my desktop for the video feed every week? I'd like to know.
Come on.
I can make it happen. I'm just too lazy. Last up, Joe.
Yes.
I always enjoy your beer gut segment. This is still from Rob. If for whatever reason you're ever in Manchester, UK, hit me up on Twitter and I can recommend you some places to sample some fine UK ale and craft beer. Anyways, keep up the awesome podcast. I wish you guys a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Peace, Rob from the UK. P.S. Do more spectaculars.
Oh, nice.
We kind of dropped the ball. We were gonna do a fall one here, and we kind of.
I mean, this is close.
Up.
This is a.
Well, it's different. I feel like now that we stream every week, we feel a little less of a compulsion, like we have to do one. But I still think that we should still.
I think doing episodes like this is cool. Also, just to backpedal a bit, it's K Staps STAPS on Instagram if you want to follow the.
info@bloodygoodhorror is the email address. We're also on Twitter @BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH, and Joe listens to mean music.
Oh.
So mean.
Bah.
I can't. It's
poor Joe.
Mark.
Yeah.
That's your cue, buddy.
Well, you were supposed to give John the cue because he's firing him up.
Yeah, my bad. I'm firing him your way.
I don't control what Schnars does.
First one is from Reality Boy. What day is Tuesday, 8 p.m. in the Australian capital? Being from the future, I have forgotten my history lessons. Hashtag Mr. Wolf. I don't know what that means.
Was that about like when we were?
Yeah.
Can you hold on 1 second here, Mark, so I can get the tweet up?
I think that was last Thursday.
Talk amongst yourselves.
I think you probably should have tuned in.
Is Mr. Wolf a Pulp Fiction reference?
Clickety click, clickety click, click.
Sorry, man, it's tough. I can't.
Click, click, click. Do.
So what was your guys' number one non-horror movie this year?
Oh man, I just saw Brooklyn. That was delightful and romantic. Also featured what's his face from Ex Machina and Star Wars, who is
Oscar
like basically what Domhnall
Gleeson.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't really watch
it's actually that dude's year. He was in like every movie this year.
I don't watch very many non-horror movies. It's kind of sad. I mean,
if if we are saying that Mad Max is a non-horror
Well,
movie,
okay,
that's
yes.
clearly the non-horror movie of the year. But
I'm trying to think of what comedies came out this year because that's the other
After
thing I
pure
tend to
enjoy-
see. Oh, Pitch
Spy was
Perfect
really
2.
I haven't seen that.
I'm not joking. Pitch Perfect 2 is awesome.
Yeah.
Spy was pretty
Hashtag get a daughter, Joe.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
with
already-
Casey.
I didn't mind
Spy
the
was
first.
pretty funny. I'm with Casey and John.
And I
Spy
would
was-
say Vacation was overlooked. Vacation was not
It's all
as
right.
bad as
I
it
got
could have been.
really bad reviews.
Joe, I'm just saying, if you want some lady empowerment for your daughter,
Yeah.
Pitch Perfect 2
I will.
might be the way to
I
go.
definitely we will watch that when it comes out.
It's pretty good.
I know it sounds like I'm joking, but if you guys see Paddington, that movie is so great. Like I'm not even joking. Like I'm
No,
not like
I,
not even the least bit of sarcasm. It is a great movie. Like
I feel a compulsion to watch it, and I'm trying to convince the lady to watch it with me, but I feel like I might have to watch it like by myself, like a creep.
No, that's
I
one.
can't imagine she wouldn't love it.
I'm
it was
waiting. I'll wait until my kid is old enough, and I'll make him watch Paddington and pretend like it's for him.
The Jungle Book looks awesome. I don't know why. I want to see it.
I'm kind of interested. Bill Murray is the voice of Baloo.
Yeah, the voice cast is crazy.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
All right, Eric, you all caught up? You ready for this?
See.
Dusty Evely, who's got a pretty sweet Critters avatar. Are you firing anyone that doesn't have It Follows in their top 10?
Sounds like I don't have to fire anybody, so that's cool.
Isn't that Casey?
Except Casey.
Well,
Yeah.
he's grandfathered in, I guess.
I do love that we use the term fired when none of us actually get paid for this.
Oh, Lord.
Casey's union, we can't fire him.
That's right.
In a related note, he's got a lunch break coming up, so we should hurry up.
No,
'Cause
it's
he's
getting
out
close to my
as soon as that
bedtime.
whistle blows.
Next one is from 40
See
Ounce
y'all.
Heroes. Not a question, but I just want to thank the whole BJH staff for all the content you guys have given us. Proud to be a Patreon.
Oh,
Thanks, bro.
Oh,
Boom.
Proud to be a person that you Patreon to, I guess. I don't
like
know.
you too.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, let's see.
I feel like you might have missed one, but maybe I just messed up.
Yeah, I've got these fucking things all out of order, but this one is from DLS 235. Do you guys and girls have high hopes for the final Phantasm, Ravager?
Ooh.
Love to see a remake of the original.
That
Thought?
trailer looked real rough, bro. I was not like.
Yeah.
It looked like a fan film, basically.
I will
I
watch
haven't
it
seen
for
the trailer.
sheer completion.
No, neither
I mean,
have
those are movies that need a lot of money to make them good, and no one's giving you that money in 2015. So you tell me
Yeah,
what
but
that formula equals.
J.J. Abrams is like going through and redoing the first one, so there's some attention there. Maybe they
What?
can
They're re-
yeah.
Are they redoing it?
They're not redoing it, but he's doing like a remaster for 4K screenings or
Oh,
something.
weird.
Yeah,
I
and
was like,
that's
I
why
think that's an
Captain
Onion article.
Phasma. Captain Phasma in Star Wars is in honor of Phantasm,
Huh.
and I'm not making that up either.
Is a-
I read that on the
It
internet.
still sounds like you're making it up, but
I've read that on the internet. Fair point. That's awesome. I would watch that. I don't plan to watch the fifth. It's the fifth one, right?
See, I haven't seen a third
Yeah.
or the fourth.
don't worry about it.
John, you want to get together?
The
and maybe
third's
do
all
this?
right. Don't.
Joe, I'm
I'm
interested.
not sure I've ever
Listen.
seen. I've only seen the first two, I think.
I don't have time to talk about Phantasm Schnars. Let's move on.
All right,
I'm
keep
fading.
them rolling, Mark.
All right,
I
next
just sent
one.
you all of the tweets. So
Next one is from Robale.
Really
I have an
bad.
answer ready for this. Best Christmas cookie.
Oh,
It's interesting.
peanut blossom.
Yeah. Okay. That
strong.
was my answer.
Strong
That
game.
was my answer.
I might.
cut out cookies. They're adorable.
I might say close second. The hell are those?
I
things?
ha-
I forgot. The cinnamon.
Buckeyes.
What are those things called, Mark? Snickerdoodles.
Snickerdoodles.
Yeah.
I helped,
What about
I
Christmas
helped
crack?
Kathy Newell make peanut butter blossoms today. I unwrapped like 200 Hershey Kisses today.
What is Christmas crack, Casey?
Christmas
Yeah.
crack is made with saltine crackers, and it's got some butter and brown sugar and some other things in there that gets melted and poured over the top. It's actually really good.
I'm just gonna
You
say
can coat
that-
it with sugar with chocolate.
That sounds like some bootleg Midwestern ass shit.
seriously.
No,
Right
I
It
bet-
probably is, but it's good.
So you take a stick of butter and you deep fry it in chocolate.
I thought that
and
was
put
gonna
it on a
end with,
stick.
and then you pour it down your chest.
Yeah.
No, that's how I grew the beard.
I like it. All right. So we don't have a consensus, but we all have answers.
Cookies.
All right. Next one is from Death Rabbit 3K. Any of you guys see Knock Knock? I thought parts of it were good, but unfortunately, in the end, it was still an Eli Roth movie. Oh, Eli Roth.
We did.
I haven't seen it.
We did not see it.
I was planning on seeing it, but Green Inferno put me out of the mood.
It made 2 lists. It was on Ben and Luke's top 10s.
All right. Well, we're probably missing something. So we missed one. Okay.
No, it's fine. I just was confused.
No, but they had it 9 and 10.
Oh, okay. Next one is from Pump, also Death Rabbit 3K. Pumped That Party Hard is on sale for $7. Might I also suggest the game Naughty Bear? It's like a slasher movie with teddy bears.
Sounds fun.
I have played that one. That's good.
Man, I recently mentioned and I can tell that people were listening by all the random friend requests I'm getting on Steam, that I just re-enabled my account after 4 years, and I can see how you would spend a lot of money there. Like, I'm like, oh, this is an indie game I'll play for 20 minutes, $10. Yeah. Boom.
Well, the Steam sale is on now. The Steam sale started today, and it goes through past Christmas. So hold on to your wallet.
Steam I haven't touched. I'm the worst.
I've got some Visa gift cards. I gotta,
there you go.
Burning a hole in my pocket.
So what are you up to this weekend, John? I'm just curious.
What's the Steam now?
Right, this next one is a 2-parter from Catastrophic. Yeah, okay. With It Follows being one of the best movies of the year, does it show that good direction, soundtrack, and acting can make up for plot holes? The plot holes bother me, but it's still the best IMO for 2015.
I mean, to me, like, one of the things it does really well is have a really memorable soundtrack, which is a thing all those classic 80s films had that you don't see enough now.
I mean, the
like
plot
one I've gone
thing,
back and listened to on Spotify a bunch.
I mean, the plot hole thing, like, it lives outside of the realm of reality, so you can look at any like classic horror movie and find plot holes in it, you know.
It's kind of like surrealist.
Like what happened to Michael Myers that made him like not killed by bullets? Like,
right,
you know,
right.
his mom was a stripper. That doesn't help. I don't.
It follows.
So
I don't want to give it. I don't want spoilers or anything. I'm just curious. Like, what is the complaint of the plot?
I actually couldn't tell you.
I don't know. My guess is if you really try to like think through the exact mechanics of the.
Well, it's like a fantasy horror film. It's not, it's like.
Yeah.
Well,
I
but
mean,
that's the
right.
You know.
It is the world's only sexually transmitted ghost movie, so you got to kind of blaze your own trail.
Right.
Yeah. No, I would actually say
I don't remember there being anything so blaring that we talked about in the show.
In response to her like exact question, I almost feel like good direction, just full stop, can overcome like almost anything. You know,
right.
you show me like there's an interesting movie that we did on what's it called?
Statistical?
Yeah.
There you go.
I think Casey saw it, called Lost River, which like isn't even that well directed, but it's like very stylishly directed.
The Ryan Gosling joint?
Yeah.
Yep.
And like some of its biggest flaws were direction, but it was also some of its biggest strengths. Like he made really strong choices as a director, and like sometimes that's enough. I mean, Casey talked about it in Hellions. Like sometimes like just doing something crazy as a director is enough to like pull in folks, and I don't know. So yeah. Direction.
Who's next, Mike? I want to make sure I'm on the right one.
Huh? The Lausch.
All right, stand by.
Say again, Joe. What'd you say there?
I thought Ryan Gosling was awful on Saturday Night Live.
I didn't see him.
Yeah.
Could have been better.
Like I thought there were good skits, but like he had nothing to do with them.
No,
that's true of a lot of hosts.
The alien abduction one though was freaking fantastic. It had nothing to do with him.
He added nothing to it.
Yeah.
Except for laughing. I was
Except
losing
his
my mind.
beautiful face.
Well, yeah, I mean he's a gorgeous
Joe.
man. I'm not going to take that away from him.
Yeah.
All right, next one is from
Pretty
the
people are
Lausch.
just better, Joe. I think that's clear.
I know.
Yeah.
I am one.
Right.
You guys ready for Das Lausch here?
Sure.
When drinking scotch, neat on the rocks or bloomed with the tiniest bit of room temperature water?
Rocks.
I like water or ice. I mean, I'm an ice guy.
Rocks for sure. I'm drinking scotch right now. I'm drinking a dusty bottle.
I'm not trying to be no manly dude over here with like warm booze. Like, come on.
I was drinking scotch earlier, and I typically take it neat or with the bloom.
Like in a brandy snifter, and then you do this. Go.
Well, no, it was out of a Scotch glass. Actually,
like you're waiting for the Titanic to.
John,
fall.
We all know you take it neat.
Yeah,
like a fancy lad who loves berries and cream.
It was delicious.
Yeah.
It's not Scotch. It's a little off topic, but it's still fairly close. I'm now a new convert to bourbon and ginger ale.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the bomb.
When I was drinking bourbon, which I was drinking a good amount of it, I was always ice, always rocks.
Does it have gluten in it? Like
why mix it? It's delicious.
Like, are there any hard liquors that you can drink?
Yeah, actually, bourbon itself, as long as it's pure, is actually pretty fine for celiacs. Unless, and this is wild, some companies, the barrels that they age them in, the glue is made from wheat. And that like seeps into it. But that's like some hard level, like you'd have to have a severe allergy, which is not necessarily my issue.
So you can still drink like whiskey.
I can't have alcohol though, so I'm not really drinking it all. But yes, I could theoretically.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm having fun over here, Joe.
Well, this conversation took a turn. All right.
Yeah. Life's great, Joe. Thanks.
Have you ever thought about just like stepping in front of a bus?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay.
No, why do you think I have to listen to Skrillex to get hype, Joe? It's all I have left.
Shit, no wonder you're listening to the beats and the boops.
Power through. Come on, Mark. Get us over the hump.
Robot Joe is so sassy. All right. This one's from Robale. Come on, Schnars and Eric BGH. The main girl in It Follows was in The Guest. She out-kecked the Keckner.
The Guest. Oh, I didn't see The Guest. That's why I didn't know that.
Yep.
He is correct.
That's cool, though. Go her.
Also, I will continue to point this out because I find it fascinating that the two male leads in It Follows were in Star Wars. So they were in the two best movies this year.
Whoa. Wait.
More
What?
importantly, how about the guy from
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Attack the Block
Dude.
being in Star Wars? Like,
Right. Yeah.
That makes me so happy that
Wait,
that guy
the Finn dude was in Attack the Block?
He was the main character in Attack the
Yeah.
Block.
Mind blown. So explain to me this connection with...
Thank God you guys just confirmed that and I'm not like a huge racist. I got so scared there for like 2 seconds.
Explain to me this connection with It Follows, Mark.
So I'm really bad at actor names, but head of Facebook guy was the fighter pilot, and
Wow, he
what's
looks
his
different,
name?
though.
Domhnall. He was Sith Hitler.
Oh my... Okay. Yeah, okay. That part, I feel like me and Mark were giggling at that part because that was like, could you have picked a fancier lad to be your like?
Well,
Sith
have you guys
Hitler?
ever seen that? He's in that romantic comedy About Time, and he's just like the most delightful little British.
It borders
lad.
on parody when he's like trying to do that. Yeah, I don't want
Nobody
to.
remembers his stellar turn as Bill Weasley in Harry Potter.
Yeah, he looked like a dude I had seen somewhere in something like that.
He looks like a Weasley.
I was like, I don't watch this Doctor Who show, but he looks like he could be one of those.
But I mean, it's an interesting point. Just to bring it back to our general meta discussion. There's a lot of really like quality
That's awesome.
acting going through genre stuff lately.
I gotta say, the fact that that's the guy from Ex Machina, right? Is that what you just said?
Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind because he looks so weird and creepy in that movie, and he is handsome as hell in Star Wars.
Yeah,
bringing it.
He was also in Brooklyn.
Beers might be catching up to me, but like all I've heard for the past 2 minutes is just you guys randomly naming movies with no sort of like connection to any of them.
Well, that's fine, Joe, because you sound like a robot now. So.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Go to bed, robot Jeff.
I think it's time to power
also
down.
Drunk enough that you're blurry.
Power down for maintenance.
So next one is from Blue State Pod. What is Mark BGH's or anyone else's favorite bourbon? P.S. Hit us up if you ever want anything that's only distributed down here. I'm guessing down here is in Kentucky. I'm a big Bullet guy.
Yeah.
I love Bullet. I also love Trader Joe's like $15 bourbon because it's $15 and it's actually really good.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of just a Jack Daniels guy. Although you drink a lot of Jack Daniels and then you have like an actual good bourbon and you do kind of go, whoa.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Buffalo Trace is usually a regular for me too, after Bullet.
I was drinking Evan Williams for a while to try to save money, and that's like paint thinner. But it looks like Jack Daniels.
If you want a good bourbon for cheap, get Costco's brand.
Costco bourbon.
No, I'm not kidding because it's made
Is the bottle plastic?
It's made by the people that made Maker's Mark, but it's only aged 5 years instead of 7.
Huh.
It's actually really good.
Some rubbing alcohol.
And it's $20 for like a bucket of it.
Maker's Mark is good, and so is I don't know if you guys have had Gentleman Jack. but that's where it's extra filtered. My old neighbor told me that they visited the Jack Daniel's distillery, and there they told him if you want to make Gentleman Jack, all you got to do basically is get a Brita filter and filter your bourbon through 3 or 4 times, and you basically get the same effect because all they're doing is just filtering through charcoal.
Life hack, bro.
That is a life hack, Mark. Nice.
I'm gonna throw out a shout out for Widow Jane, which I think I've mentioned on the show, and is
fancy.
delicious. Yeah. So
I like it.
Go for it.
CVS rubbing alcohol always does the trick.
I'm a fan of a nice scope mouthwash.
That's where Joe goes when he's trying to save a buck.
Also, I'd just like to point out we have a trend of picking the most horrifying Skype pictures, and Joe's is. I don't need video from Joe anymore. I just need this really creepy mustache.
I know that mustache is fabulous.
All right, we've got 2 more. This is from Catastrophic. The ad for Unfriended would play on Spotify while I listened to Disney songs. I went from Mulan songs to teens screaming.
Also, I love that you're listening to Mulan songs. That's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Joe feel would be into that.
Me too.
Joe Feel?
Yeah, Joe Feel.
Joe Feel. Last one.
Joe Feels. That's my new podcast where I just talk about things that make me feel.
Praise Joe. Bada ding 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 whoa. All right. This is from PS Gothier1313. Between Ex Machina and The Force Awakens, how damn cool is Oscar Isaac, charismatic mofo
He's cool.
in Star Wars?
Yeah,
he is
he's
very
cool.
cool.
He's got that hair.
Also,
I
had a very long conversation with my fiance about how he looks so much like that guy that was on Freaks and Geeks, and we went through. Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. The buddy?
Yeah, yes, he was on that show Numbers, and he's been in all the Apatow stuff.
Yeah, and we were just we were going through naming movies and trying to figure out which one was which, and we just got them all fucked up.
This dude is a more handsome version of him, though, to be fair.
Well, he's a more evolved, manly version of. A Most Violent Year. Have you guys seen A Most Violent Year?
No, but I know what you're talking about. It was Jessica Chastain, wasn't it?
Fantastic. Yeah, it came out last year, I think. It was a fantastic movie with Oscar Isaac in it. Sort of mob-ish, but just kind of a really good, really great movie with him in it.
And inside Llewellyn Davis, he played a folk singer. I think he got some Oscar nods for that, didn't he?
Yeah, I love that movie.
I loved it.
Man, he's just the best. He's the real winner this year.
Yeah,
agree.
Kiss his mouth.
Especially in Star Wars, though. And this isn't spoilery, so don't worry, John. But his Poe Dameron, you really just kind of want to high five the dude and hang out.
Yeah, you 100% do.
Man, have you guys heard of Star Wars? It's so good. John, you got to go see it or download it and watch it on an airplane.
Don't worry, all right, you fucks. I'm going. God.
Go watch it on your laptop.
John, if you want to go see it at 10 p.m., I know a guy who would like to see it at 10 p.m.
Guys, 2015 is over.
That is the year.
Tis time.
Guys, we have a bunch of random ones that just popped up, and I think that I should read them. I'll go through them really quick.
All right, well, you have 3 minutes before this music ends, so go.
All right, first one. Sophie, Philly's Femme. I had 9 out of the top 10 movies, but left off Bone Tomahawk. Can we call that Sophie's choice?
Yeah, also, she made the right choice, so score.
All right, next one. Mark72 Carroll. Been listening since 2007. Awesome. Thanks for everything. Would you want a sequel to It Follows?
No.
I don't see how they'd make it interesting.
All right, next one. Also Philly's Femme. Sophie, did you guys know that Arnold did Maggie for $0? Any thoughts?
It's weird.
Good for him. He doesn't need it.
Weird choice, Arnie.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about it. I'm sure he jumped at the chance to act like a human for once.
I don't need a paycheck. I'm going to have fun with this.
I'm a Midwestern farmer.
I do it for the love.
Eric, your accent's so much worse than Joe's.
Pittman 1382. What do you guys think about the upcoming movie The Witch?
Oh, can't wait.
It's
sweet. The best trailer I've seen in the theater in a while.
Boom. Look at that. Burned right through.
Sorry, I accidentally started the music, so it's time to
I also missed one from Louch, but I'm not going to read it because I'm at my parents' house, and I feel like they will kick me out of the house if I read it.
I think that's probably a good instinct, Mark.
Yeah.
As I was saying, people's 2015 is over. It's time to return to your dwellings and spend the holidays with your family. It's also time for us to regroup, get ready for 2016. Who knows what it may hold, Schnars? I don't.
Mystery.
Also, thank you to all the live watchers.
Yeah,
Yes.
we broke our record tonight of number of people concurrently watching the live stream, so that's pretty exciting. And if you liked what you see, check out patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. Find out how you can get it every week, and some other cool things you get, including access to all of the back Bloody Good Horror archives. Also, one more plug in 2015 for the BGH YouTube channel, youtube.com/bloodygoodhorror.
Close, BGH video.
Yes.
No, we have both now.
Oh, what, Mark? I knew that. I totally knew that.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You definitely didn't know that.
All right, guys. That was the year in horror 2015. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you next year.
Who?
Adios.
See you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.